Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who has joined this event from all parts of the world. Hope you and all your family are doing safe in this COVID times. Our best wishes are with all of you. Today is our last event for the year, and what an icing to the cake with an explosive topic. The half-day virtual event happening today will focus on marriage of AI, IoT, and blockchain technology. Along with the great talks, that is the seven great talks which we have for the day, we have a power-packed panel discussion too, which will add a flavor and also provide you deep insight into future of technology with a focus on AI, IoT, and blockchain. Now to begin with, let me introduce myself and the company to you. My name is Nitin Naveen and I am the Vice President Innovation Strategy at AI CodeSpot. I'll be your host for the day and I am joined by my great colleagues Arvind and Naveen who will be assist me in keeping the event lively and resolving technical glitches if it comes in between. Our ultimate aim is to provide a seamless experience to all of you so that you can gain the maximum output out of this event. Let me provide you a brief background about AI CodeSpot to all of you. We started this year, backed up by our technology partner Digit7. Our focus is to provide all of you a deep dive in all the sectors, wherever technology is there. And every month the theme is different. Also, we are gaining momentum month on month as we are moving. Our aim is to be number one AI-driven community all over the world so that like-minded people like you can be part of the same in supporting, growing, and making it a success. We'll continue to do industry-backed webinars and hybrid events. The knowledge repository will be made from reliable data through industry leaders, subject matter experts, and the thought leaders. We'll enrich the content through various mediums like videos, blogs, podcasts, digital content, newsletters to shed light on this ever-evolving tech industry. Our mission is to serve as a hub for information regarding Industry 4.0 technologies, which includes all the emerging ones like AI, machine learning, deep learning, robotics, blockchain, IoT, edge computing, AR, VR, cloud, 5G, drone, edge AI, digital twin, and all the emerging ones. Today's event is one series of events which we have planned for this year. It's power-packed with speaker presentations and panel discussions themed around marriage of AI, IoT, and blockchain. Interesting topic. There are lots more in store for subsequent months as well, with focus on healthcare, retail, e-commerce, banking, financial sector, aviation industry, and so on. Request all of you to go through our website, which is AICodespot.io, through which you have registered as well for future updates. Also, please like our social media channels, which will keep you all updated on everything what we propose to offer in the coming months. Before starting with the day, which you all are waiting for, let me highlight a few things so that it can set up the tone for the amazing learning and networking day. A special mention to our technology partner, Digit7, who has helped us understanding our vision and supporting us to create a platform like this through which we can help achieve our objectives. Their support is immense. So some introduction about Digit7 to everyone so that you are aware of them. Innovation is the cornerstone of Digit7. At Digit7, they combined emerging technologies in unprecedented ways to engineer extraordinary products and offer innovation as a service, which is called INAS. They are pivoting the traditional innovation model on its head to bring innovation closer to production and citizen scale impact with innovation DNA. They draw transformative resources and endless energy from 4 quarters to make this happen. The association with trusted brands which they have are AWS, Microsoft Azure, IBM, Microsoft, SAS, Adobe, Salesforce, Sterling Commerce, amongst others, which help them in constantly practice, upskill the practitioners and champion the partners' best delivery methodologies. Professionally, they are closely associated with some great bodies like Tech Titans, FOB, Technology Council, CompTIA, Richardson IQ, University of Texas, Dallas, and more technology power brain to leverage their everlasting standpoints and the diverse skill sets. So let me introduce some products and the services which they have so that easy for you to understand. They have some amazing great products like Smart Express Store, e-commerce, Grab and Go, HPOS, admin management, smart AR, delivery pickup app, digital wallet, drone scan, blockchain-based SCM, Label Monkey, Data Mink, Digital Twin, So exciting range of products as well as services which they provide are product engineering, innovation as a service, digital transformation, customer experiences, and innovation design. You can all go through their website, which is a very interesting website, AI-driven website, the digit7.io, and understand more in depth. Also, thanks to all our community partners for today, which includes InfoVision, Iotex, Vodafone Business, SAP, Ranial Systems, Calotech Inc., WSP, USA Pariveda Solutions, Marathon, QSecure, VMware, Way.com, and V2 Solutions, which makes this event a huge success. A special mention to speakers and attendees of the event who registered and came today to achieve their objectives through this forum. At the end of the day, obviously, if you gain few things out of this or get to network with each other, then our core objectives will be achieved. Further, if anybody wants to ask questions, they can type in the Q&A section, which is there on the right side of the menu option. You can type in as when the speaker speaks. Don't wait for the speaker to end the conversation and then you start with the typing your Q&A. Type it as and when the speaker speaks so that we can get it answered after each talk or as per the time permitted. There's also a hand button on the bottom of the screen through which you can even raise the hand and come to the stage to ask questions to the speakers as well. Now I'll quickly take you all through the agenda for the day so that you can get introduced to the speakers and their topics. So yeah, this is the agenda which you can see in front of you. Amazing agenda for today. We are starting in the next 3 minutes by Art Malko, who is head of growth Iotex. His topic is unlocking $1 trillion potential of IoT and blockchain space. Then we have Eric, who is vice president IoT new business development Vodafone Business. His topic is future of IoT. Then we have Thomas Madonna, industry executive advisor for automotive SAP. Topic is new technologies are being introduced into the auto industry daily. So is automotive the next high-tech device replacing the smartphone? Then we have a panel discussion moderated by Chitrai Mani, CTIO InfoVision. The theme is future of technology, AI, IoT, and blockchain. We have other great speakers who are joining the discussion. Prasenjit Bhadra is their founder and CEO, Ranial Systems. Amit Jain is their co-founder and CEO, Calotech Inc. Chaku Kronia is their Director Innovation Advisory, WSP USA. Kent Norman is their Principal Pariveda Solutions. And Fred is their CEO of Marathon. Then we have the next talk from Dave, who's founder and CEO QSecure. His topic is quantum could be a major threat to AI, IoT, and blockchain. The next topic is by Anita Zindal, who is Senior Director Engineering VMware. Her topic is practical strategies for building large-scale systems using IoT and AI. Then we have Sharda, who is the founding member and business head of Way.com. Her topic is early experiments with IoT in parking. Then the last topic for the day is by Amit Kachru, who is Chief Revenue Officer, V2 Solutions. His topic is AI plus IoT, that is AIoT, powerful accelerator for digital transformation. So yeah, we have some interesting topics for the day. It's a half-day virtual event, so I think you will gain the maximum output out of this. So I'll quickly hand over the stage to Art Malko, who is from Iotex.
All right.
So may we have Art taking the stage and do the talking. Thank you, Art.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me see. Live. Let me see what I'm.
Yeah.
How do I?
Just at the bottom, you can see the screen share option.
Oh yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Hi everybody. I'm Art, and hopefully, can everybody see this?
Yeah. Yes.
Excellent. Fantastic. And so yeah, very, very excited to be here. And I'm Art Malkov, head of growth and a CMO at Iotex. A little bit about Iotex. We are IoT and blockchain company. So right perfect for this discussion, and I was very excited to be on the panel. I was invited, and I said, I have to be here. This looks incredible. And therefore, here I am. And a little bit about Iotex. We are the leader in blockchain and IoT integration, and I'll walk you through what we've been doing, how the space looks, and why blockchain and IT can unlock $1 trillion in value. So let's take a look. So this is our vision of what it could be possible, which is MachineFi. So MachineFi is very much about coming economy. There will be commerce or trade, if you will, and there will be machine to machine, machine to human communication, and all that is actually part of MachineFi. So MachineFi is just one giant opportunity for the world to really experience the future. So according to McKinsey report that just came out about a month ago, there is $12.6 trillion that is being currently up for grabs among the IoT and smart machines and machine-to-machine economy. So we're very thrilled to be part of it. And I'll tell you more on who we are. So let's start with Iotex team. So this team is stacked. So I have joined Iotex for the big part because I believe the founders have an amazing view of what's possible. And to give you a little bit more of understanding, the team of Iotex brings different skills and experience that comes from DeFi, IoT. For example, our CEO and co-founder, Roland Chai, he was a head of cryptography and research and development at Uber. Yes, the very Uber, yes. And then he was security engineering lead at Google about cryptography as well. So it's awesome. Then we have Xinshen Fan, who's PhD in cryptography from University of Waterloo. He has 15 patents filed in information on security technologies. In fact, he's right now leading a work group we just announced 2 days ago with IEEE, that has names such as Ericsson, Lenovo, Huawei, and many more. Bosch so it's incredibly strong team. So I'm thrilled to build the future together with such team because there's so much to do, there's so much to unpack, there's so much to explore, and this is a perfect team to do it. So for me, Iotex has been a very interesting and fascinating journey. So let's continue. So what's so exciting about it? So I'll give you a quick roadmap and the major milestones that Iotex have hit, and I'm really gonna keep it brief. So it was founded in 2017. At the time, the blockchain and IoT space was pretty nascent, and over time, we have grown very rapidly. So, for example, in 2019, we launched our mainnet. In 2020, we launched the first IoT-powered blockchain camera that actually won CES Innovation Award, the biggest consumer electronics show in the world. The blockchain camera won an award. That wasn't unheard of. So this is really making the major steps. Then we launched our decentralized exchange. A year ago, we launched lots of different apps, development tools, elements that need to maintain that ecosystem. This is very important. We have to have ecosystem to build the structure. To unlock that value of $1 trillion, we need to have the structure. And we recently got released at Coinbase, and really the next step for us is a MachineFi marketplace, which will allow people and app developers to bring machines, to take control of machines, to monetize machines all across the world. And in 2022, our vision is IoT and blockchain will start to merge much more so. And if you can look at machinefi.com, you can see more details. And yes, and so for example, we have grown very rapidly this year. That just shows that people are interested in the fusion of IoT and blockchain. We are the leader in IoT and blockchain with live devices and blockchain, with lots of transactions. We're decentralized, which means people no longer curious, how can we do this? They see the value and they really they really want to be part of this transformation. So for us, it's all about ecosystem. And ultimately for IoT and blockchain, it's ecosystem, because you can just add complex technology on top of devices. You need to have an infrastructure, you need to have resources. And here's an example of our ecosystem. This is a lot of this project has been added in the last year and a half. As you can see, it has been growing at a rocket ship pace. We are trailblazing and providing tools that will be needed to support this machine economy. It's a from the ground up approach where we're building infrastructure. Anyone who has IoT project or blockchain project and want to combine it, they can come to us. If you have an IT project and you say, hey, how do I build on blockchain? We have infrastructure for you to build almost anything you want. So we have DeFi, games, tools, exchanges, enterprises, wallets, public chains, governance, you name it, we have it. So this is very important for us to really highlight, where we're going. And a little bit of why blockchain is such a strong concept and why we believe that we're much closer to that fusion than many people think. So with wider adoption of robotics, AI, and machine learning, human workers won't be obsolete, but the landscape will be different now. Machines will perform many of the jobs across all sectors of society in as little as 10 years from now. In fact, according to McKinsey report, they believe that there are going to be 100 billion smart devices by the end of 2030. And every day we're adding so many devices on. For every person, there will be 10 devices that need to communicate in some way. And if they don't communicate, we have a problem. And this is where MachineFi comes in. This is extremely important sector where it's, in fact, according to McKinsey report, once again, IoT value is set to accelerate through 2030. And this is where we can capture it. There will be $12 trillion up for grabs. And we believe blockchain will be essential element to capturing that value. It's a really machines. They're partially replacing what human can do. It's not a question of. So we believe that machine finance, where we to be autonomous, is going to be the next step. And so, sorry about that. So let's take a look. What does it mean? What does it really mean? So it's clear we're in the MachineFi economy already today. This is very important for me to emphasize. The kind of economy that right now benefits only the big tech companies like Facebook, Google, Amazon, and other versions of big tech. All the economic benefits, and that works just great for them. But what about us? So really, Web 2 cannot power the upcoming massive economy of machines. And we call it Web 3. This is the kind of blockchain term, where you own your data, you get to monetize your data. It leads to monopolized ownership of the future workforce and absolutely doesn't support the critical pillars for new machine economy. And this is what has to change. So we're building the new pillars of machine economy. And this is going so other leaders in Web3 are creating this new ecosystem. And this is for you IoT folks as well to take a look at, because we're now providing tools and features that allow you to trust communication of machine to machine. We're solving the issues of enabling machines to operate as economic actors that can be trusted. This is a very important part. If you cannot trust somebody, you're not going to do business with them. If you're going to trust somebody, you're not going to have communication with them. But it also applies to the machines. If machines cannot talk to each other, how do they communicate? They can't. So that's it. We have silos of different devices. We have written the software rule book that incentivizes machines and people to be able to securely do business and earn from commonplace activities like moving around a city, attending events, using preferred modes of transportation, or even playing NFT games. the list is ever expanding. There are so many opportunities and ways to engage with machines, engage with things around us. And Iotex is the fastest growing decentralized engine, and we're building the platform, the layer really for anyone to build on. So I fully welcome everyone to try out and actually explore blockchain. Don't think that it's expensive. It's not anymore. It's very affordable and it's scalable. For $1, you can do up to 5,000 transactions. That's how scalable it is. The big problem with blockchain used to be it was too expensive. That's no longer the case. It's very affordable and it allows you to add value. And the best part, finality is under 5 seconds. So machines can interact with each other very quickly and cheaply. An affordable part is very important. So we have really looking to tap into the future. And we're making it possible for people to form communities that own machine networks that are economic engines for public good. That's how big but completely doable our vision is for what's coming. It's exciting. So yes. So what does it do? Why machines? You probably heard of metaverse from Facebook before, but why? How does it apply to machines? Guess what? It does. It applies in many different ways, and this new machine-based economy will be at the center of our lives. The spokes of the MachineFi wheel will include the number one, the metaverse, where the real world is mirrored online or affects that the metaverse in different ways. Different actors benefit from it. So there is that ongoing loop that's happening. Then there's going to be community-owned machine networks. Imagine a community-owned self-driving car company. That is amazing, and it is coming. There are a lot of, it's called DAOs, decentralized organizations. And this is not a fad. People want to take control of their data. They want to take control of their owner, of their earning it from the data, and no longer large companies just fully benefiting from it. So your individually owned device that can be your economic agents, spinning some sort of income for you while you go about your daily life. As you're collecting the data, you actually can monetize the data, maybe providing for a hospital or a study, and really capture the value. So how do we do it? So the new engine of machine economy is composability, pre-market, and user as owner. You go, what is going on? What do you mean? What do you mean composability? What do you mean? So how do we get today's monopolies to the new MachineFi economy? And that's by giving things away. And that's maybe sounds crazy a little bit, but it will work by creating and giving away these tools to everyone to capture value. We create a broad open standard where builders can innovate and not be locked into a walled garden. This allows developers to leverage the work of others, how no longer the large company takes everything. We enable financial transactions that work across as many blockchains that abide by the same set of standards. So standards is very important. And free markets are also very important. And users are very important. And when you combine it, that's the machine economy. That's good for the other chains and really good for the people. And then we make sure that every person that control their own identity and economic rights, and they're incentivized to do business in this MachineFi marketplace. And you go, oh, fiction. I am not. Truth is, we are very, very close to it. So the reality is, as a new industry, MachineFi is well on its way. And look at this number as comparing traditional to Web3 or MachineFi versions. DeFi, decentralized finance space, is worth 300 million in 2 years. It's already worth that. It's made it there. We're talking about ginormous pace in a span of 2 years. NFTs are expected to be worth. They are worth right now 200 billion in that space. It's happened in 1 year. We're talking about NFTs, the JPEGs that are on blockchain, worth 200 billion. That's a lot in less than 1 year. GameFi, in less than a year, it has been projected to be worth 100 billions, and it's already there. So it's really critical. And finally, social influencers are looking to be worth, unlock 70 billion in value as well. So all that is fantastic. But how does machines fit into it? And the traditional IoT device machines, that's where MachineFi comes in. So we can take DeFi, NFT, GameFi, and really power MachineFi. So don't be daunted. Graphically, there is a lot of things happening, but if you take a look at this graph, it shows real world, it shows metaverse, it shows wallets, explorers, SDK. It all plays a role. And the metaverse is just a layer. So blockchain is being powered by a blockchain requires fast speed, cheap transactions. And the beauty of that is it's already here. So idea is how do we unlock that trillion value? And it's really becomes from machine to machine. It's we have to make sure they trust each other. We have to make sure they know where we're going. We have to make sure that the machines actually know how to take proper steps. And we're launching TrueStream very soon. That's going to be something that stay tuned. Check out machinefi.com or iotex.io for more on that. And but the reality is these projects are really, we already have the infrastructure in place. We have a layer in place, and anybody can build on top of that. And the thing is, without the decentralized identity, DID, without that element, you cannot have MachineFi. So ultimately, we're working on that layer right now, and this is a very important part for us. So I would say in conclusion, what are we doing? How are we doing everything? The Iotex doesn't want to create a walled garden where MachineFi is only possible in a singular economy. Really, Iotex cross-chain capability allows any other ecosystem to bridge their assets, onboard their devices, and start contributing to the emerging multi-trillion-dollar machine economy. So this is a new concept, but it's a concept that's already here. We already have different parts that are placed together and working together, and we just got to connect them. So right now we have the separate parts, and Iotex is building that layer so anyone can build. MachineFi is about leading the way for this new reality where creators, developers, small businesses, and larger corporations can connect their physical devices with this digital world and monetize from the valuable data that they generate, and allowing people and individuals capture the data and actually be able to gain value, both from privacy and monetarily. The Iotex ecosystem is developing the standards and protocols necessary for such machine economy to function and flourish. MachineFi takes in advancements in AI, robotics, automation, and smart manufacturing, and redistributes the generated wealth and opportunity to everyday people. Everyone can benefit. That's amazing. You can benefit. Your mother can benefit. Your relatives, your neighbors, everyone can benefit from this economy. And we're much closer to that than you think. So IoT smart devices will play a crucial role in Web3 and Metaverse. So now it's time to deliver ownership back to people. So away from big tech, and also big tech will realize at some point that maybe they cannot capture all the value. Maybe at some point they got to share. So wearables, autonomous cars, 3D printers, you really name it, we can capture the value. So it's computer building, robotic world, machine Turks, all that requires data, requires oracles, requires proper trust, and Iotex is building it. And we can really unlock it and have people capture it. So to finish up, thank you very much. I think I'm right on time. So you can follow us. Our website is iotex.io. If you want to learn more about how you can build on top of it, please go to either machinefi.com or iotex.io and follow us on Twitter. Follow me at Twitter. You can reach me at art_Malkov on Twitter, and direct message me, say hi. You can also add me on LinkedIn, Art Malkov. So that was a pleasure, and thank you for having me. This was a real blast. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Art. Thank you for setting up the tone for this lovely event, and thank you for the great presentation which you had. I think it has set up the tone for the amazing day. What is in store for the audience?
Knock them out all. Eric, it's you.
Yeah, thank you. So, guys who have joined late, just to let all of you know that please ask questions to the speakers as and when they speak. Don't wait for the talk to get over and then to start to ask any question, because time is less. We'll try to get your question answered after the end of the presentation. So I'll quickly move on to our next presenter because we are exactly on time. So moving on to Eric. Eric is Vice President IoT New Business Development at Vodafone Business. His topic is Future of IoT. So over to you, Eric. Thank you.
Naveen, thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Eric.
Excellent. Excellent.
You can share your screen.
Right.
I can see the presentation as well.
Yep. Please let me know when you are able to see it.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Naveen. Thank you. Thanks, everybody joining. Eric Kling from Vodafone. Let me just say maybe the first thing, a couple of words about Vodafone, who we are. Most probably, most of you know us. We are the world's largest carrier. Just to give you a quick couple of numbers. Annual revenue, roughly 41 billion. We have 27 operating companies around the globe, especially with Vodafone Germany, Vodafone India, Vodafone South Africa, just a couple of the largest operating companies. We have over 100,000 employees. IoT specific, we have 136 million IoT connections, and we are the #1 global in IoT, connecting worldwide according to Gartner Magic Quadrant. So just to give you an idea of the business and what we're doing and the size and so on. IoT is a technology, and I'm very excited to talk about the future of IoT. And I know there are sometimes a lot of abbreviations, and it's almost like the sky of abbreviations here. Also, when we heard my previous speaker, also we talk about AI, IoT, VR, AR, you name it, 5G. So sometimes it's very difficult to just follow the new abbreviations, which are coming up, old ones and new ones. But it's really amazing to talk about the Internet of Things, IoT, as a technology, as you see here on the left side. And what do we mean by this? Is the technology, the previous name for IoT you probably have heard was M2M, which was machine-to-machine communication, maybe a little bit more descriptive than Internet of Things. But as a technology, it's very properly defined. You're talking a lot about the standards. You're talking about different communication protocols, where you probably see it in wireless arena, Wi-Fi, Sigfox and others. So there are a lot of communication protocols under the underlying technology. IoT as an enabler is a little bit different, because with IoT as an enabler, you basically see that this enables the data collections plus the analytics, and ultimately is responsible for a much better decision making based on real-time data. And I think you will hear this throughout my presentation when we talk about real-time data and how real-time data is delivered to basically enable AI, which is critical. The next slide, and I like this slide a lot because it gives you a little bit of an idea where the industry is. And in the report here from the IoT Spotlight survey, it tells you also how companies really value the IoT technologies and how do they want to use it. 87% say IoT is critical to our future success. 73% say companies not adopting IoT will fall behind. So that is a clear indicator. You really need to have IoT connectivity and IoT infrastructure and technology. And 77% IoT provides greater adaptability and resilience, which is also really key. And the IoT Spotlight survey really shows on where we are going and where the trend is. And obviously also for the topic of my presentation, where the future of IoT is, I do believe that the future of IoT is very bright. So let's go on and look at IoT is the source of real-time data for AI. And it's kind of this intertwining between two technologies where IoT cannot with AI and AI cannot with IoT. What really IoT is enabling is the digitalization of the data to have more efficiency, control over your processes and data, better decision making, new strategies which ultimately lead to new products and new business models. So I really believe that both AI and IoT unlock the power of data, which is really, really amazing, and create so-called data lakes. Data lakes is basically managing big data, and it are different layers of data. The layers of data individually and isolated as have not a lot of value. But if you're putting the layers of data together, IoT and AI, then you can make a lot of sense out of it and create intelligence through AI. Basically, data lakes are transforming pure data into real advanced analytics, data visualization, and machine learning, and enables you at the end of the day to increase your performance. And AI and IoT together, significant value for the customer. And when you look at it, AI is really useless without a data lake, and vice versa as well. So no data lake, then artificial intelligence is also not really useful. Then IoT is really, as I mentioned shortly, the driver of digitalization. And then you hear always a lot of, as I said, these abbreviations or power words like digital thread, digital twin, VR and data analytics. So I wanted to spend a minute on basically talking a little bit about what is it? What is a digital thread? What is a digital twin? And how do you use VR and data analytics? When you talk about a digital thread, very, very short, it is the capturing of the live data. Capturing of the live data and creating the data lake, I was talking about it, is your basis for any kind of data consumption and collection, where you then take your intelligence via AI out of it. A digital twin is also very, very interesting when you talk about a digital twin, because that is the digital model which you're taking out of your physical counterpart, which is really interesting. And what does it really do? It allows you to understand your physical product much better and understand how it has been configured and how it will perform. And then you can increase through the digital twin the efficiency of the real physical product. For VR and data analytics, this is basically AI and IoT together, which is transforming industry. And I just wanted to real quickly mention healthcare. Healthcare, for example, you see here very clearly when physicians are operating in the operation room, they basically can be with patients which are all over the world without being physically present with them, which is an amazing opportunity. And we're working also with a digital healthcare technology platform with Vodafone UK, for example, with a company like Proximi, where we also transform the way of how surgeries are done, training are done, and how surgeons can be transported virtually in basically any kind of geographical location. And that is what when you talk about VR and data analytics, which I think I'm very excited about, all three of different, it's almost kind of a use case when you talk, how is it developed from a digital thread? What can you do with a digital twin? And ultimately, how is it used with VR and data analytics? Then another short abbreviation I didn't even mention yet. Then your question is basically, how can it be, is how do you use 5G in a world which enables AI and IoT, and what can 5G do to improve the processes? Well, 5G ultimately, I just took here the top three kind of definition of what 5G really is all about. It's about high bandwidth. That means the amount of data you really can transfer. Then the low latency, which is basically speed, and the quality of service. So when you look at all of this three together, you have a powerhouse of connectivity via IoT to enable AI. And that for me, the most important thing I was looking for, what kind of word could I look for, what 5G really does for the AI environment. And this is basically predicting in real time. And when you can predict in real time, then enables a complete different way of how you look at your business and what you can do with it, which is absolutely phenomenal from a technology perspective, considering also 5G. The next one I want to talk a little bit some more. I talked so far. I talked a little bit about AI. What is IoT? 5G influence. Now I want to talk a little bit more about use cases. So, am I only talking about a theoretical concept here, or am I talking about something which is live today, used, applied, and basically taking advantage of? What we do, for example, with the company Ford Motors, we are using with Ford Motors, for example, a couple of different technologies together, 5G plus AI plus AR and VR, especially on their welding plants. We are currently running with Ford 2 mobile private networks on 5G. And what do we want to achieve with that, with our partner Ford together, is the downtime of production, enabling secure remote support on the manufacturing line. And why is that possible? Because of real-time live data. And that enables you also, and enables our customer Ford to improve intelligent maintenance right then and there. So I think a really exciting story with Ford, for example, which is running live today with Vodafone. The next example is also AR and VR for the maintenance of our Vodafone network equipment. So what does that mean? When we have network equipment out in the field, and we have our specialists out there, we're doing a lot of different maintenance, scheduling, and others, and especially in the different field of our antennas and connectivity. And what we are able to do with the AI and lifetime data is guided work instructions when they're out in the field. Here, for example, you see an example with Vodafone United Kingdom. Remote support, where specialists can basically guide the field engineer on what to do exactly live. Faster training and onboarding for new employees as well, and give the field engineer visual IoT data information in the field to be able to do a better job and be more efficient. So I think that is really an amazing example how we apply already today all these technologies in the field. Next examples, I just added here a couple of solutions in the field which we are applying IoT today. One solution here, you see IoT Next, especially in the oil and gas field. Oil and gas is a very interesting environment because you have a lot of regulations, you have a lot of different solutions you can apply, but certainly connectivity, monitoring of the gas and oil pipelines, especially also predicting if there might be a maintenance, or even predicting that there might be an accident in the future, and then being able to avoid this is absolutely critical for oil and gas, which I see a lot of use cases, and we are working with different partners very deeply to develop that solutions. The next one I really like also is Hello Tractor. Hello Tractor, in short, we always say Hello Tractor is the Uber of agriculture. So what does it mean? Especially this company out of South Africa, what they're basically doing, they're renting the equipment of the tractors to farmers who will never be able to afford their own equipment. So with this kind of service from Hello Tractor, you are enabling a better agriculture outcome, a better agriculture infrastructure to enable the farmers to increase and enhance their results out in the field with different with different crop and everything they are using. So I really like Hello Tractor, and then what they are basically can see when they're renting it out, they see the location of the tractor, they see the usage. They can also predict a downtime on the field for the rental equipment. So I think a very neat and an interesting example how this is used in the field when you're using IoT and AI. The next one is Exobionics. I come back a little bit more to the healthcare field with Exobionics, where you see here an exskeleton. This is for people who are not able to walk in their life. So they are having the first experience, really, what does it mean to work with Exobionics and Vodafone technology. AI and IoT and connectivity are enabling this exskeleton to walk. And I think it's an amazing use case, an example on how this is really applied in the field in a use case. So I love that example from Exobionics very much as well. Last but not least, what is Vodafone Business? I gave you a couple of numbers right at the beginning of my presentation. As I mentioned, we're looking in IoT specific. At the beginning, I was talking more about who is Vodafone and what we're doing globally as a corporation. This is all these numbers you see here are IoT specific. With 130 million IoT connections, we are the number one connectivity provider for IoT solutions and IoT AI blockchain applications. We are looking roughly right now at a 20% year-over-year connection growth. That's where you see also where the industry is heading, and also when we looked at the survey results, that is also proven that companies and partners and customers take it seriously. Across 182 countries with our global SIM, one platform around the globe. It really doesn't matter where you are headquartered or located. You can manage your connectivity globally wherever it might be, with over 570 plus networks. And then LPWA technologies, depending on what you're looking for. Low bandwidth, high data usage, low data usage. How do you want to connect, in what kind of rhythm or time frame you want to connect those? So there are a lot of different connectivity providers with a wireless layer on top of your solutions. And we are the number one for global leadership. So having said all this, I believe when we look about the topic, I'm talking about the future of IoT and AI. For me, it's looking very bright. I think it's an amazing journey we have on the one side behind of us, but also I think it's an amazing journey which we will have in front of us, and I'm very, very excited about it. So with having said this, Naveen, I'm going to be able to give you 2 minutes back. So thank you very much, and back to you, Naveen.
Thank you, Eric. I think it was a lovely presentation, and the case studies you just showed, the used cases, I think these are excellent. I'm absolutely thrilled to see the technology taking its shape in the agricultural field. The Uber of that thing, I think it set up the tone.
Yeah, I agree, and I also really love that we are going from a theoretical
quick question, Eric, here.
Yeah, Chitrai, please.
It's a very, very impressive presentation because we are also part of this area. But how do you blend the, especially on the AI technology with the augmented reality space? Because augmented reality space is booming a lot, no question about it. But the blending of how do you blend AI into this space? Any particular things?
Usually, what we do, we are an enabler for any kind of technology, also with VA. So we're really relying also on our application partners to go in specific fields like VA. So that I think is a very nice way of moving into the markets, because we as Vodafone and basically our core intelligence and our core services lay definitely on the connectivity layer. And what you will see from us in the future is partner much more with our different partners also in the different areas to deploy the services. But our main expertise certainly is connectivity. And the next step will certainly be go into solutions and also support the solution providers, as well as with the acquisition you saw from IoT Next, going into the solution area as well.
Yeah, the MEC will also help a lot on this side, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chitrey, for the interesting question. There's one more question from Ben Lewin. Eric, last question for you. As humans continue to outsource cognitive operations to digital technologies, how do you think this will affect human intelligence and consequently brain mass?
Yes. I think it's going to be, Naveen, clearly a coexistence between both, right? It's going to be a coexistence, and I think the digital intelligence has its place, as well as, of course, the human intelligence has its place. And I think it can be a very healthy coexistence of both technologies when you monitor it nicely. And also, I talked at the beginning about standards. I talked about regulation and rules. I think if we also follow this kind of infrastructure we are putting together for that technology, that will also be key to keep that balance between the two opposite sides.
Sure. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for the lovely and exciting presentation. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure the crowd must have enjoyed it as well. We'll stay connected. Yeah, we'll reach out to you soon. Thank you, Eric. Have a lovely day. Yeah.
You too.
So we'll quickly move on to our next presenter. Thomas Madonna is there, who is Industry Executive Advisor for Automotive and SAP. And his topic is new technologies are being introduced into the auto industry daily. So is automotive the next high-tech device replacing the smartphone? Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you. I feel like the two first presenters, Art and Eric, were actually straight men for me, based upon some of the underlying structures and conversations. And also that Ford example is a great one. So hello, I'm Tom Madonna, Industry Executive Advisor for SAP. I'm responsible for assisting how automotive uses our technology, enables those business processes, and gets the best value out of it. We've seen today, that the automotive companies are going through a really big disruption, both in a continuity execution, but also in an ability to add more and more technology and more services, as well as features and functions. The intelligent automotive company is now basically being disrupted on multiple facets. One on the mobile side in regards to 5G and what that's going to mean in regards to execution, as well as the profitability and new service models that are coming out of that in regards to what is a traditional model and what's new models going forth, let alone the things that are coming out in regards to EV, ADAS, and AV technology, all of which are going to be using IoT, they're going to be using AI, and they're going to be using multitudes of other pieces of software. When we look at the reports that are coming out, we see that let it be CASE or let it be ACES, we see both acronyms being used, but connected vehicles, connected to smart cities, connected to other info brokers coming out. We see autonomous execution. This includes all going from ADAS all the way up to completely autonomous. We see shared execution in regards to shared rides. We see electrification going. All of those pieces are now affecting what's happening in automotive, as well as the light, as well as heavy manufacturing. So what does it mean in regards to the ecosystem with automotive? The primary factors we've seen typically have been in that small gold box. What we've seen as of late is that is expanded. The ability of using mobility providers, info brokers, and execution, the impacts across the industry and the ecosystem is vast. The customer is pushing for more and more information, more and more technology. The use and captive execution is being put out there, as well as making, one of my colleagues have now called it a computer on wheels. So the automotive industry is being impacted by the technology and the software that is going in and around the vehicle. Imperatives. Customers are looking for more customer centristic. They're looking at different ways of buying. They're looking at how that's going to basically impact, which means we have to be smarter in regards to the execution, the configuration, the ability for that customer to get his experience online. Mobility. What happens when that particular vehicle needs to be charged? Where that charging station is going to be? What happens when I'm driving and I basically start to tire and the vehicle can tell me I'm tired and start to show me Starbucks as pieces? So there's additional revenue and subscription-based services coming out. Connected cars in regards to making the car more smart as well as more safe to drive, being able to interact with traffic lights, interact with other cars on the vehicle execution. What happens within the supply chain, making the factory smarter, making the execution occur. And then secondarily, all this is going to have an impact to the workforce in regards to new technologies, attracting new people, and keeping them enthused in regards to what they're doing. What that basically boils down is to the SAP Intelligent Enterprise. And really, it basically centers around our common factor. We call this the hamburger slide. It's the business network. It's all of those individual suppliers and customers that basically make up your network. It's what's basically running the enterprise internal in regards to how you use the software. What does it mean in regards to interaction with your customers, your suppliers, your employees, and your products? And then secondarily, just like Art talked about before, is the technology platform. What's the enabling structure to allow for partners to interact with that data, to basically use and make no longer a data lake, but a useful execution data layer. As we start to see that, I'm going to give you an example of our digital vehicle hub, which again was talked about, Eric, in regards to the digital twin and what the interaction is and what that's basically translated to. So we start to see that interaction, the sustainability layer within the business technology. We see partners basically tapping into that. We see the ability for the OEMs to provide data to the suppliers and to the service providers. We see customers able to pull that information. We see a predictive maintenance execution model that's occurring in regards to tracking the vehicle itself and giving predetermination of things that are going to occur before they occur, before that car breaks down, before that battery needs to be replaced. All of those are basically leaving software into technology of moving automotive into the next century. So the digital twin is basically our repository in the cloud. So the digital vehicle hub takes that OEM data, the build data, and moves it to a executable, usable structure in the cloud, allowing for the OEM to share and or transact that particular data with their ecosystem. Let it be the service providers, the dealerships, the customer itself. It allows for the vehicle to interact back with the OEM over the air. So we talked, Eric talked about 5G, that interaction of that data back and forth. It's a scalable execution model. If you can't get to the data and get to the data quickly, you're going to have a problem. It's the ability to tap into all of those pieces of data and how you're going to use them. And lastly, it's the network and the scenario execution that's going to basically prolong for that adoption within the ecosystem. I'll build this out very quickly. So you start to see the vehicle transaction data being the feed to that. When a vehicle comes off the line, passes that quote, quote, dotted line on production, that vehicle data is published. Next, when the vehicle's starting to be used, when the warranty is being put in place, when that vehicle is being serviced, all of those things are being gathered. That IoT data is being loaded into the vehicle. Now that vehicle can be seen by anyone in regards to the next time he walks into a different dealership, the next time he goes to a different service provider. If he happens to be the EV, he can start to then track what's happening with the EV battery consumption and what's going on with that. If there's any R&D or engineering information that needs to be shared, it can be shared. Lastly, you start talking about all your third party, all your startups, all your share companies, all the retailers and dealers, and those that are using that data in a mobility execution model. As we start to look at the digital vehicle details, we see the combination of the vehicle master data interacting with that transactional data and the telematics data that's going through it. That can be shared. It can be shared within the ecosystem. It can be shared across. So we start to see the lifespan, the ability to maintain that particular vehicle, be able to report off of it, as well as able to do the execution. So the execution of the drivers, not only does it take the IoT data, enabling of business processes, it also gives you the ability to publish that data and the use of that data on execution. It gains the operational intelligence insights in regards to how that vehicle is being used, what are the things that are going through it. It allows to lower the cost of the vehicle life cycle in regards to maintaining that particular vehicle for the duration as well as downtimes. We start looking at fleet management. You want to have an upside in regards to that execution. You want to be at a 95, 97, 98% uptime. Very difficult than a personal vehicle, which may not be up as much. You want to basically reduce the data in regards to how it's being used and maintained. You want to make sure it's crystal clean and available immediately. And lastly, the interaction of real-time data to correspond with the customer, interaction with the ecosystem, interaction with other vehicles, and how that data may carry across both an environmental as well as execution piece. So as we start to see the connected mobility execution, we see the traditional scenario where a customer's online, they start to use stuff, they go through a series of pieces, that some of those pieces in regards to financial transactions might be a blockchain execution, how the offering is basically done, start to configure that, and then basically from there pricing and executing. With the new model, you see a connected inside execution that's starting to sense what's happening with the customer. What is the customer looking for in regards to their execution? How is that business model going to be flexed? How is the ownership and usership going to be used? How is the maintenance and subscription basis going to happen? And do you have real-time execution of turning on as well as turning off those services? The reliability of the usage of the performance of that data across the vehicle and IoT is also going to be imperative. So that connectivity and real-time pieces, a lot of data. Today, millions upon millions of transactions happen on a minute-by-minute basis, and only 15 to 20% of that data is physically used. What happens if 100% of that data could be used? And then lastly, you see automotive companies starting to understand and leverage what data is coming off of those vehicles and how customers can get a better experience, get a better execution model in regards to maintenance, as well as what the long-term execution of that particular vehicle might be. So again, increasing customer satisfaction, retention, decreasing downtime, and giving more flexible models to what's occurring. So the software enables not only the customer to look at it, but also the service organizations to go through it. A multi-channel experience, service networks that's going to bring customers and suppliers together, mobility services in regards to additional execution, different business models, the power of what's going to happen with interactions and the connected assets, and lastly, location. All these vehicles across all these particular locations in smart cities, out in rural events, all of these occurring. Streamline execution, allowing for 360 execution of the vehicle with the customer and how that particular asset is being used. So one of the things to also note that is very interesting is the customer service capability. So we start to see how things are going to evolve. It's not going to be overnight. We see customer efficiencies as being the first piece, omni-channel execution as being the third, the power of bringing the Internet of Things empowered these subscription-based pieces to drive new business models. And lastly, the service network that goes through it. We see a smooth execution from stage 1 to stage 5. But as you start to see it, the operational piece, the operational change, the value, the long-term asset, and the actual monetization of those services are part of what we see within the models. So again, I'd like to thank the organization for allowing me. I'll take any sort of questions that may come up.
Yeah, Thomas. Thank you. Thank you for the lovely presentation. We'll just wait for a few minutes if anybody has any questions. In the meanwhile, I can see Eric is still sharing the screen. Eric, if you can just stop the screen sharing. Yeah. Thank you. So we'll just wait for 1 minute, as we'll start with the next discussion, which is a panel discussion, a great panel discussion moderated by Chitray, who is the CTIO of InfoVision, as the moderator. Next, we have Prasenjit Batra, who is founder and CEO, Renial Systems. We have Amit Jain, co-founder and CEO, Iotex. Then we have Jacko, who's director, WSP USA. He's director, innovation advisory. Next, we have Kent, who is from Periveda Solutions. And then we have Fred, who is CEO of Marathon, and he's into several advisory roles of different companies as well. So may we have all of you on the stage who are in the panel discussion. Oh, great. So we have some time. We'll just start with the panel discussions once all are here.
Hello. Hey, Nitin.
Yeah, hi Chitray. Thank you.
Sorry, I thought of the meeting. We are just kicking off at 9:40, not 9:30.
I
Just
know, I
checking.
know, but yeah, the last presentation got finished, so uh,
Fine. Are you
yeah,
able to see me?
so we will start it as soon as you are here. In the meanwhile, we have all the
Good now. Are you able
speakers.
to see me?
Yes, we can see you, Chitray.
Perfect. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the delay. Just walked
No,
out
no,
of the
it's just
apartment.
it's just that we are before time now. So we have great speakers
Perfect.
with us. Their face,
Can you start
we
for
all
this
can see
book,
each other.
Nitin? Is it
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, it's all good, Chitray. You are looking, and all the speakers also, I think, are looking perfect. So we can start away the panel discussion. The theme is Future of Technology, AI, IoT, and Blockchain. And great speakers. I just introduced everyone's name, and obviously we can start the introduction, and then we can take it forward. You have around 1 hour, 20 minutes for this panel discussion. So it is still 11 a.m. Yeah, CT time. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Prashanjit, Amit, Fred, Kent, and Jacko. Nice to meet you all. I think let me quickly introduce myself. This is Chitray Mani. I'm the Chief CTO of Infovision as well as a CEO of Digit7 Labs, heading a lot of innovation projects. And I do multiple roles. A short introduction. And I see a lot of good presentation was happening before Eric and Art. Wonderful presentation. I really loved it. I'm looking forward to see others' presentation in the upcoming Tommy. And let me kick off our panel discussion, especially talk about marrying these three technology. I know there's a lot of hype is going on in the industry about this, lot of technology, especially if you talk about AI, Edge, 5G, AR, VR, digital twin. I think Eric also covered some of the very good topic about that area. Are very hyped in the industry, especially blockchain is coming up. I know Fred is also very strong, or a lot of people are strong in the cryptocurrency side and blockchain side. So let me kick off the questions. And audience, please, if you have any question, please, you can keep posting in the Q&A session. We can keep bring the question up while we were discussing the panel. Feel free to post the questions regularly. And hope you addressed the question from someone asked by Ben Levin, right, Nitin?
Yeah, it has been answered by this Eric, so it was addressed to him. Yeah.
Perfect. There is a two question from him. That's fine. Okay, let's go with I know we are talking about three different technologies. Out of others, we are skipping off AI, blockchain, and IoT. Okay.
So just,
Can you say
sorry,
we are
the last
mature to
question has
marry
not been
all this
answered.
technology
Yeah.
together now?
So the
Let me
last
start.
question is yet to be answered. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let me repeat the question. Can we say we are mature to marry all this technology? Who would like to take this question?
Yeah, I think, are you able to hear me? I can take
Please
this.
go ahead, Prashanjit. Yep.
Yeah, so the convergence of the technology and the maturity, I would say when it comes to AI and IoT, yes.
Prashanjit, your volume is very low. Okay, could you please increase it?
I'm using. Are you able to hear me right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Now.
it's better now. Yeah.
Yeah. So the integration of IoT and AI has reached to a certain level of maturity. I would say that has reached to a point wherein we would be able to definitely, make use of that. But then integration of the blockchain is something which would require a little bit of work on the ground, especially in terms of standardization and marrying that with the existing IoT standards. That will probably take some time. Unless and until we are able to really deploy kind of a mass scale IoT systems, and then we are able to look at some of the use cases which are more stateful in nature, I think blockchain will take a pause for some time, but I would say definitely this is a very strong construct in terms of this convergence that we're looking at.
I would add one comment and say that one area where this construct actually is beginning to work is in the realm of IoT and video, where either you're using security data, security video, or you're using manufacturing video by taking different systems and essentially recording the video segments, whether it's just the index headers or segments on the blockchain after AI has processed the video, you're able to provide people who need access to those video segments with it without necessarily having the application that originated the video or the application that did the analysis. And all the metadata is then baked into the blocks as it goes out. So we're starting to see a lot of that in the retail surveillance area, theft prevention, for example. You see Amazon with their advanced cashierless shopping stores where it's all just video cameras. You walk in, put stuff in your basket, and as you walk out, you're automatically checked out. There are no human beings in the stores. That level of video blended with AI, blended with blockchain is beginning to happen today.
Absolutely. I know, especially when you talk about Amazon Go is a good topic to bring in. Those are married with the AI and IoT. How it's going to come up with blockchain? Because AI and IoT is kind of pretty known in the industry now, but still the marrying of blockchain with this technology is not hyped much in the industry now, right? Because blockchain is considered as a centralized data management solution. But AI and IoT is for separate things. But how do you see here, Fred?
No, I think actually blockchain is a decentralized data management solution, not centralized.
Yeah, sorry.
So that's the whole reason why. If you look at the whole concept of the metaverse, and so I've been involved with IoT systems for 30, 40 years at this point. And I took public one of the first companies deploying embedded internet technology for IoT, specifically almost 21 years ago. The technology today is really about the I is really the transport medium, right? The T are the devices that are capturing the data or generating the data, if you would. What people now want to do is move to the metaverse. You want to take data out of the applications, out of the silos. Away from SAP, away from Salesforce, away from Rockwell Automation, Siemens, et cetera. Deployed in a blockchain where it's accessible by any analysis tool, any other application, any other use case. And the data is fully in control of the owner of that data. You can then either use that data as an asset that you're selling. You can use it as analysis. You can embed all sorts of information in the metadata, such that whatever is in those blocks is that much more valuable to people. And I think you're really starting to see this where AI provided the ability to do predictive maintenance and predictive applications where based on the high volume and high resolution, high frequency of big data that was coming off of IoT applications, AI took the analysis piece out of that. It's now started to add the predictive layer to it and trying to in real time forecast and modify actual quality in manufacturing processes. There are companies like Odin Technologies that have software that in real time look at plastics extrusion quality and can adjust systems on the factory floor, things that otherwise required physical sampling before. But now you're moving to taking that data and making it accessible to all other applications. Prior to the blockchain, we were forced to put that data into a database that you then had to have an API to, and it became a custom solution always. By moving that data to the blockchain, now all of a sudden it can be as transparent or protected as you want it to be. And the best thing about it is no risk of ransomware, no risk of data mismanipulation. The enhancements of moving to the blockchain are huge.
Absolutely. Kent?
Yeah, Fred, I think those were all great points. For me, it's really, AI, blockchain, and IoT really come together when we start talking about use cases, especially around when you have two different entities that need to trust each other but don't really want to.
Exactly.
And a great example for this, just to kind of put some context around it, is I come from an oil and gas background, and at the job sites, there's water extraction that comes out. And what happens is that these water companies that extract it want to go in and say, hey, we're going to extract now, maybe 1,000 gallons of water. But there's that trust issue from the company that's paying for the service. Did they really take out 1,000 gallons? Are they really pulling that out? And so by using AI and blockchain and IoT, you're able to put sensors in. Hey, maybe you're able to detect with a camera. Hey, is that really water in the tank? And then be able to transact via the blockchain that, hey, there was 1,000 gallons taken out, And then what's really beneficial is that it speeds up processing of the payment. By being able to trust on the blockchain that things are working, instead of having 4 to 6 weeks of paper trail afterwards, people are able to exchange and get paid in near real time as the services occur. So there's really benefit on both sides. The one company gets the value of knowing that what they paid for actually got delivered, and then the service provider also gets the value of being paid quicker in that exchange. So there's really lots of great use cases around building trust across entities whenever they're able to use the blockchain.
Yeah, the combination of smart contracts and an oracle, where the oracle is the truth, the source of truth that's telling you that much water has been extracted, and then a smart contract executes and forwards the payment automatically. Completely trustless model. Yeah, absolutely.
I think what's also imperative here is to consolidate the data sources and not to run concurrent data pools. That's where we've seen one of the biggest challenges in collecting vast amounts of IoT data is when each system stores the data themselves, and then they manipulate the data, another system manipulates the data, and you start losing track of where is the source of truth, where is the master data. So in this equation, or this decentralized platform and solution offering that blockchain enables, we also need to realize that there needs to be a shift in how we think about data, and the data can't sit and reside with one entity only, but there needs to be clear data exchange guidelines between all of those systems.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would like to add a couple of more points. What Fred, Jaco have just touched upon. One of the challenges which used to be at least what we understand a couple of years ago is that different industries have been at a different level of maturity as far as these three technologies are concerned. So if you look at why blockchain has actually kind of taken a little longer to get integrated with AI and IoT is the adoption of blockchain in the banking sector, but not so much so in the manufacturing sector. Which is what we are seeing now. More and more manufacturing applications are adopting to blockchain as the bedrock to manage the data systems as their preferred data management systems. So that is one maturity which is which is maturing in the manufacturing and the automotive space. On the other hand, on the IoT, especially when we talk about certain other segments like banking, where the maturity of IoT adoption was not really so great, there were different challenges which today we are seeing that as an industry it is overcoming, where the failure data. So, for example, just to give you an example, right? We built a whole lot of models which are on which are fundamentally data which is coming out of the IoT devices. But unless we have the failure data, how do we really build a robust or build a working application? So what we have seen and what we have observed is that part is also getting overcome with a lot of simulated data, right? What we call synthetic data, and we have started using a whole lot of synthetic data, especially on the failure data, to build solutions which integrate both on IoT, on the upstream data, and the using blockchain as a bedrock to build AI-enabled application and integrate it with the oracles or any other CRM. So I think that maturity is now today we see that maturity of integration of these three technologies across industries.
Right. I think it's a great point from all of you. Nitin, are you able to hear me properly now?
Yeah, now it is better, Chitray. You had some problem, but now it is okay.
Perfect. Sorry, guys. I'm facing some issue in my laptop. Okay, let me move on to the next question. So I know which industry do you think are most ripe to beneficiary of this marriage, especially from a pandemic?
I mean, I would say supply chain is one of the key areas. The other is Pharmaceutical manufacturing is a big one, tracing lots of vaccine codes. You need multiple parties who need to be able to have access to data regarding vaccine lots and how, especially these vaccines that are volatile in the sense that they're sensitive to temperature, et cetera. If you have temperature tracking sensors that follow with the vaccines, then all of a sudden you could see is a particular lot, has it been exposed to heat, has it not, has it been shaken, et cetera. So supply chains, specifically around food, just cargo in general, and pharmaceuticals, I think, are key, high value use cases, and then beyond that to any form of telematics, tracking, et cetera. Beyond that.
True, absolutely true. So, any other industry do you think? Kent, you are on mute, or we're not able to hear you?
I mean, not really an industry for me. This is going to kind of seem counterintuitive given some of the conversations earlier, but I think anything around environmental impact actually has a very unique opportunity here. When you think about, customers are really becoming more interested on what's the carbon footprint for the products that I'm buying. And if you're able to tie a carbon footprint with a product, be like, hey, these tennis shoes that I bought, the rubber got sourced from here, and then it got shipped across the world, and be able to track via the blockchain how much, what that carbon footprint is. I think that's really an interesting use case to drive an impact. You also think about ESG scores as people are trying to figure out, hey, what's a standardization for measuring my impact on the environment? You can't measure, you can't improve what you don't measure. And a lot of what you have to measure, you need IoT to be able to do. And you're able to use IoT, AI to be able to predict maybe if there's a flare up or a leak somewhere, that you're able to predict those type of things and then do maintenance. I think thinking about it from like a use case perspective, especially around the environmental impact that you have, could be a really big play for AI, IoT, and blockchain.
Yeah, but the question is still going around which industries more benefited a lot better than, for example, supply chain is the number one. I don't see any kind of name message from anyone. We know what we are trying to get, even cheap, any item, which is taking almost 2 to 3 times than what we are expecting now. But is there any other industry do you think is a retail industry or any other industry which is can get more benefit out of this marriage, or banking industry, right? Banking still not going down, still is going good because the money is not moving out of bank. It's completely there. People are not able to spend money, right? So I'm trying to understand, is there any other thing point, Amit?
Well, health data, definitely.
Banking is one industry which we very closely work with, and banking, the adoption of, or rather I would say that adoption is still at a very premature stage, or it's at a growing stage. But banking, there are plenty of use cases which banking industry is adopting, especially on the IoT. So they were way ahead on the maturity curve as far as the blockchain adoption was concerned. But say use cases like humanless branch banking, right? So those are the kind of things, those are the kind of use cases which are very rapidly emerging. You touched a very important point, Chatre, which is that post-pandemic, the money, the avenues, or rather the money is not getting so much circulated as it used to be. So every bank's focus today is that how do we enhance this circulation, and they are very rampantly looking at solutions which can enhance either the user experience at the branch using IoT devices or wearables and so on and so forth. And on the other hand, as humanless touch points, or as humanless interactions as possible, because obviously there is a post-COVID, there has been a significant drop in the branch banking. I mean, that is something which I would say that yes, that's one industry which can benefit tremendously from this marriage of IoT and blockchain.
Yep. Just quickly, when you talk about especially blockchain, do you think we are really mature in blockchain? I know industry is picking up. I'm not saying no, okay? It's picking up. But do you think really blockchain is mature to say, hey, we are really good to go everywhere blockchain? Because especially when I bring blockchain as a particular topic, because we are talking about it's the next generation security aspect. The data is more secure. As Fred mentioned, there is no way you can hack it or misinterpret or anything you cannot do. So is that, but still I see it is not enough to say, hey, we are everywhere blockchain, but industry is moving towards, big companies are investing more on their platform frameworks is coming up. But do you think we are in a state of, we are in a just a POC level, or are you saying no, it's started getting more mature now? So who can someone talk about this topic?
I'd say with blockchain, we have passed the hype curve and are in the trough of disillusionment, as Jeff Moore likes to describe it, or Gartner likes to talk about it. We've gone through the hype cycle and we're now in that, okay, we have to do something real with this. So the challenges with blockchain have been transaction velocity, cost of transaction processing. You now have layer 2 technologies on the blockchain, which can process transactions faster than Visa, MasterCard can at a fraction of the cost. And when you get blockchains that operate at those speeds, now all of a sudden big data applications on blockchain start making sense, where you have millions of transactions per second possibly, or data points. This is also where AI becomes important, because the more intelligence you can embed in the metadata of your data that you're recording on the blockchain, the less actual data you need to record. Because if you can record the insight and the specifics of what led to the insight, now you don't need necessarily the historian data. That can be stored offline. If you need it, you can archive it, you can get access to it. But the data you're operating your business on is insight data, or intelligence, essentially. Much less density of data with more intelligence added.
Still, we have pros and cons. I'm going to come to that point later, okay, because of blockchain. But Prasenjit, go ahead, Prasenjit.
Yeah. So, I'll tell you this, almost 20 years being in emerging technologies, I think a lot of hypes come and go. And then at some point, they settle down. Right. So if they settle down with a certain set of applications and solutions, there you can see a repetitive value. The blockchain, of course, I have personally haven't really worked extensively on that particular space. But from an architectural standpoint, the decentralization is something which we have been talking about for quite some time now. Now, when you are bringing it for a new application, it is much easier for you. It's easier to adopt, as opposed to bringing in something which is like an enterprise construct. What I'm trying to convey here is that when you are trying to bring in blockchain within your existing periphery of your enterprise architectures, you have to touch on your existing application portfolios, and the rationalization of those portfolios are going to cost you a huge amount of investment. So even though you see that as an interesting value proposition in terms of bringing blockchain at an enterprise scale, but then moving those application portfolios from its traditional enterprise integration patterns that you have deployed over a period of, like, let's say 20 years into the blockchain is a humongous effort. So obviously you have to look at applications wherein you can bring in blockchain with any third-party integration, which is going to be new or more contemporary deployment, as opposed to an enterprise-wide deployment. So that's where I think we have to see the value. Now, the second part is, there are definitely very interesting use cases. We talked about some of these as we speak, but now the important part is the security is the critical aspect wherein you see there is a real ROI of deploying blockchain, right? So, of course, my invention and my patents and research is all about the distributed edge computing. So one thing that we realized over a period of time, we are talking about 75 billion, connections that we'll be connecting in a span of next 5 years or so. And if that happens, the vulnerability of the network is going to go more and more, because you are now taking out your enterprise network outside the firewall you had so far. Okay, you are now talking about things, those are kind of deployed on the field, exposed, and then kind of connected back to the network, right? we are working on very interesting use cases, and I can tell you that even though we're realizing those use cases, but the challenge is now when it comes to cybersecurity, we are still not there yet. Okay, so I think that is where blockchain would have the first bite, in terms of gaining momentum, because now we are talking about the security and all these equipments and devices on the field kind of interacting with each other. Would require a certain amount of trust established.
I'm coming to the point of security, Prasenjit, a little bit. That's what some of the questions are relevant to that area, especially IoT is still security-wise not mature enough. I can say very strongly because there's still a lot of loopholes other than IoT because especially 5G perspective, IoT perspective still not there. How blockchain is going to fill the gap, right? There is a lot of certain questions on the security aspect. Let me come over there. Let me park that question for some time. And let me quickly go through that IoT side. I know a lot of people, you guys are expert in the, especially Prasenjit, some others I'm seeing that a lot of strong in IoT as well. And I'm seeing some other question, how AI in IoT versus blockchain, there's a two different, when we are talking about marriage, most of the people can understand how AI is going to help in IoT. You can predict, hey, how the device is behaving, what are the kind of data is coming. You can analyze and kind of more preventive maintenance perspective or predictive analytics, all you can do. But when you talk about AI in blockchain, what is the combination? How it is going to work out? Because people still thinking blockchain can run on its own model. It's not nothing to do with AI. But how we are marrying here? Is there any kind of use cases or something case study if anyone want to bring it here? That's really good to bring it to this audience.
Well, I mean, a key area where you marry AI and blockchain is in automated credit approval technologies, where you're using, you essentially can embed models in people's financial records, learning models, and that will provide a score. You have the verification, the audit trail of the model that was used to produce it, and that model can be updated in real time. So when you access that record again, the model will update automatically, run itself again, and give you an updated score. So it's that marriage of knowledge, the metadata, if you would, the models with the data itself that allows you to continually have a refined insight, right? Because you don't want to look at data that's a year old that uses a model that's a year old, which is going to inaccurately give an insight if you've updated the model and the model has gotten smarter. It's learned more. It's kind of like the 23andMe and Ancestry. Every 6 months, they send you an email that, oh, by the way, we just realized you're actually not 7% Neanderthal, you're now 10% Neanderthal. Your data didn't change. It's the model that changed.
Yeah, but the point is still when you talk about the AI, I understand the data model itself can be maintained in blockchain. It can maintain there makes sense that marriage, but still when you talk about a smart contract, right? So do you think it can be enabled in a smart contract as well? The AI, that's what you're saying. It can behave more faster than. Is it the right point for it?
So for example, a smart contract could become a didactic contract. You're
right.
familiar with the term didactic learning.
Right.
There's now some belief that the laws of physics actually are didactic and they adapt over time. Same thing could apply to models, and the same thing could apply to how they're applied to blockchain.
Sure. Thanks for the clarity. Yeah, go ahead, Prajan.
Let me give you an interesting perspective with respect to the AI and IoT first. Then you probably bring in a little bit of a blockchain here. So in today's day, when we talk about AI, I mean, if you talk about an IoT in today's day, this is, I would say that this is like an old wine in a new bottle, right? I mean, I have extensively worked in the era of RFID. So Auto ID is, just for the audience purpose, the Auto ID is an organization from MIT. They coined this term as IoT back in 1999. It was not widely used at that time. But then wide scale adoption of IoT type of solution happened with the RFID and wireless technology integrations in the last decade. I'd say that because of DoD and a few other major drivers in the supply chain, retail and manufacturing, right? And when we are working on these middleware infrastructures, we are traveling across the globe, implementing some of these cutting-edge smart planet initiatives, being part of IBM, we realized one thing, that by the time we receive the data, and network is a major bottleneck, okay? By the time we receive the data, the context of the data is gone, right? So anything and everything that you're dealing with, even today's date with IoT, no matter whosoever is delivering, you are dealing with the historical context of the data. So that construct needed to be changed. And my work and our work for the last 10 years is basically how do we bring in that intelligence into the edge computing. I mean, you'll see some of my research publication in the last decade. We talked about edge computing at that time. So now the important part is, if we are talking about AI in IoT, you are not talking about, of course, there are significant amount of use cases that you have in terms of predictive maintenance you have talked about, and gaining some actionable insights from a huge amount of data that you are pumping in. And it was not possible at that time, even 10 years ago when the big data was not there, of course. So big data and the network, the reliability of the network has changed the dynamics of bringing IoT or making IoTs popular, right? Now, having said that, even after that, if you are not able to run certain predictive models at the point of action, you are not really gaining the real value of IoT or AI in IoT, right? Now, when we talk about models, and this is, by the way, even we talk about edge intelligence, it's not structured intelligence. That means you are not writing if then else logic to intercept the data. You are literally bringing in model which is trying to find certain patterns, and if it's using certain standard pattern recognition techniques or some kind of machine learning techniques, or it could be as complex as implementing some kind of fuzzy models to get the understanding of the data. But by and large, all sorts of AI models that we are dealing with, they would require a training, and that training cannot happen on certain edge controllers and some kind of RTUs that you're deploying on the site. So it is important for AI to be successful in the IoT space. We need to figure out certain models, and that's why we are working on cognitive models that can bring in. Now, if we have that, the next phase is going to be, now that, let's say I have 15 controllers connected to various infrastructures. Now they need to exchange this information. They need to exchange this knowledge, because all this time I have figured out some way these edge controllers are literally learning as they get the data. So they are basically increasing their predictive accuracy. They need to exchange this information across their peers, right? So at that point, blockchain is a critical construct, right? I mean, our foundation does that at this point of time, but we haven't really deployed blockchain because it is not mature enough, and we need to do some work on that. But having said that, that is where the critical piece of that smart contracts should basically figure out, hey, how do we basically distribute this knowledge across the network so the system become more knowledgeable over a period of time to deal with all the physical events.
Absolutely, right? absolutely, Sanjit. Just I wanted to have some of the questions from the audience as well. It's nicely covered, Prasenjit. Really smooth way of explanation. I'm seeing both questions as well. I would like to quickly take multiple questions from audience is coming up now. I would like to, you can take it, all of you. Praveen Sankari, his question is, enterprise users of blockchain often require some central control, despite the technology decentralized nature. There is still a question about who will address breaches in trust and protocol. It is kind of more his answers as well as questions as well. Anyone want to take this question? His point of view, central control is needed despite this decentralized nature is the point he's making. Yes, you can call it a decentralized, but someone has to centralized manage all together. That's the point he's strongly mentioning.
But you only need central. So this is the core kind of discussion within the blockchain world, generally speaking. In a trustless, decentralized world, the systems need to ensure that the data is correct and proper, because there isn't a centralized authority who can change things purposefully to be perfectly trustless, you can't have any one party who has the ability to control, right? Because that's what makes the data at that point proprietary.
In my perspective, answering to Praveen as well, there is a multiple model in blockchain. For example, based on the organization, how they are adapting. For some of the customer we implemented, they want to have a subscription-based centralized blockchain system who can port up and share the data. That is more centralized, who can control pretty much all the customers. But sometimes customers, they will, some of the customers want mimicking as part of the network. The multiple partner can be part of the network, can share the data. That is more decentralized control. You cannot do any centralized control. Only holding by smart contract updated by central person, right? So there's a multiple model is there, but definitely decentralized control is a pretty much booming rather than centralized control. I agree with that Fred point. So still based on the customer requirements, how do you want to drive, who is a big player? Because not all the players can make the blockchain deployed and hosted in their environment. Small vendors or small partners cannot do that. That's what the centralized control of blockchain management system is coming into the picture. That's one use case we have seen in the life for some of the telecom customers.
I mean, I'll go ahead and jump in here for me.
Sure, please. Yeah.
If you have one person kind of running the blockchain, it just doesn't make sense, right? Like that's the whole purpose, just like what Fred was saying, you have to be decentralized. However, as additional participants join a blockchain and say, hey, this is the medium from which I'm going to execute my smart contracts, I'm going to be able to execute in that way, there becomes more value. It's like the network effect. As more people join and start contributing and using that as a standard, more and more people will jump on and use it as well. So I imagine that, we have, it seems like different cryptos are about a dime a dozen right now, and that will start to centralize, and there'll probably be less as we move forward, as more and more people start to centralize and gravitate to a handful that really solve their business needs.
Yeah, and I think this is where layer 2 and layer 3 actually become active. Most people think about blockchain as something totally independent and self-contained in itself. And the Bitcoin blockchain, for example, is to the metaverse and Web3 what TCP/IP is to the internet. It's a core basic thing. It's where the real value gets created are all of the layer 2 applications, which are additional networks and chains that operate much faster, have much bigger data payloads, lower transaction costs. However you want to design them, they can be built. And essentially what they're doing is settling on the Bitcoin blockchain, but the actual transactions are happening at a layer above. And there's even a layer above that where the applications reside. So for example, a credit application resides at layer 3 or a payments application resides at layer 3. The transactions occur and the deposits are held at layer 2, and the inter-party settlement happens at layer 1.
True. That's perfectly true. Okay, let me go to some of the other questions as well. His name is Andrew Kedis. His question is, I feel marriage of AI and blockchain is challenging. AI loves centralization, a big centralized data warehouse to use for training model, and blockchain is decentralized. What do you think? Who would like to take it?
So I think
very nice question. I love this question definitely. Yeah, who would like to take it?
I just touched upon that. First of all, the AI itself had been a little bit misnomer when it comes to not only IoT but across the industry. The reason being, you have statistical models, you have machine learnings, and then you have AI. These are the different terms. But then when you are talking about AI, yes, it's by virtue of the standard models that we deploy in an enterprise, it would require some kind of centralization. It would require a massive amount of data to train, especially if you're working in deep learning in some of the object detection techniques. You probably run a training for a span of, let's say, 7 to 8 hours to kind of craft the new model based on the new data and then have that model shared to do some kind of predictions. Now, having said that, we realize that this is not going to work in a IoT when we are talking about something real time. If you want to really create that cognition, that process automation, we should leverage the power of AI. We have to come up with the models. Those would not require such kind of centralization. right? So, for example, in our scenarios, the type of engagements and implementations we are in, we are running these models in a very smaller device. I mean, say we have our proprietary hardware wherein we embed these models running independently, right? But then these models are kind of crafted models. This is where our IPs are. They are not as good as those centralized models, but they are much more than what a typical, standard logic would do in terms of handling some of the failures. So decentralization in the AI space is still happening, and that is where I think the convergence of AI and blockchain will play a very critical role as we move forward.
But keep that word in mind when you mentioned that AI with the decentralization, it's specific to the region or specific to the particular market of something that makes sense. But still, the model of decentralized AI model versus centralized data model is still there, right? Because even you need to have multiple models is needed. Yeah.
So it's a delegation of responsibility. Okay, so if you go back and Ryan, if you are in the academic research space, there is a concept called federated learning. It's a pretty expensive topic together.
Right.
So you are not saying that you take a decision based on a model which is running in a smaller footprint with a limited data. But then this model would have a tremendous value when you are able to combine this model pretty much run in real time and handle certain anomaly pattern which you otherwise wouldn't have handled with your structured intelligence that you have embedded. But then taking this layer 1 learning to a layer 2 learning, so you are also dealing with another interesting piece of it, right? So when people, like prospective customers and clients and partners come to us and we say that, okay, what's the second best value that you would offer? I said that I'm going to reduce your network cost by 50%. Why so? Because now I'm not sending anything and everything that I'm collecting from the field into a distant cloud. So you are not moving so much data, and then you are not, as you scale, that becomes the significant challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the network operators will love to have that challenge because they are able to make money out of it.
Yeah.
But having said that, for an industry, it's a major challenge because you're dumping everything and anything. So you never know by how the data going to be processed, and whether if you are really deploying something what we today's date we call as an analytics on stream can really handle that amount of data in terms of delivering you the predictive insight or actionable insight.
So Amit and Kent, do you have any points on this? Just because time. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just add to what Prasajit was saying is that, see, look, one of the biggest challenges in building robust and highly predictive AI models is the data that it requires to be trained. Right now, in a decentralized database structure, that problem gets resolved very, very quickly, right? Because what you're really building your AI model is a multiple data source and in a decentralized environment. So in my opinion, I think the biggest gain that IoT and AI as technology integrations gain from blockchain is is the ability to be able to build far more enhanced and far more learned AI models without the dependency on centralized data or on data simulations, right? So in my opinion, that is one of the biggest pluses that blockchain can deliver to the AI and IoT.
Okay, got it.
And just jumping in here real quick, as we think about blockchain and enterprise, blockchain is really valuable when you have multiple entities working together on it and exchanging data. In my eyes, it's a lot like an API, and you're able to exchange that data information. What's important to do and remember is to use the right tool for the right purpose. And like we've been talking about, AI requires a lot of data, and it's important that those models that you create are proprietary. And what you can do with those is be able to, from the models and the AI that's used, be able to detect when you need to execute smart contracts on the blockchain with a third party. So Use the AI and the IoT to gather the data, run your models. That's proprietary. That's where you're going to make your money as an enterprise. And then use the blockchain as a way to exchange goods and services and execute those smart contracts with your service providers and your customers.
Right. Absolutely. I would like to just beautifully this question was answered. I really love this question. Everyone really jumped on this one. I would like to take one more question, really very interesting question as well. Given the unsustainable environment impact of cryptocurrency, or their concerted effort in the industry to design a new architecture surrounding the method of crypto mining that doesn't rely so heavily or entirely on electronic power consumption, by Ben Levin.
So let me take that because that's near and dear to my heart. So if you look at the alternatives to proof of work, which is the energy intensive version, you have proof of stake. The unfortunate problem with proof of stake, it is a centralized model where you have central authorities who are determining the quality and the veracity and finality of transactions, which is the opposite of what the centralized systems that are meant to be trustless are meant to create. So, for example, in a proof of stake model, a government could go into a stake node who is essentially a validator and say, you have to change how you're validating transactions from this particular party. In a trustless environment that's fully decentralized, there is no single person a central authority can go to mandate anything or to make anything happen. And especially in financial systems, the stake nodes end up being the largest holders of whatever the underlying token is, and that tends to be exchanges and banks, so you're right back to a centralized financial model. When you look at the pure energy consumption in proof of work, we've decreased the energy consumption on a per calc basis by a factor of 5 over the last 5 to 6 years. It's going to continue to go down. The key thing that's important is forget about energy, because firstly, energy is infinite. You just have to find a way to capture it and use it. And if you can capture and use energy without creating a carbon footprint, using wind, using solar, using hydro, using geothermal, for example, you can even throw nuclear in there if, for some people, if you want to. There is excess energy on this planet. In the US today, we have 14% excess energy. 10% of the time, energy is negatively priced, where power providers have to pay people to take that energy. And Bitcoin mining happens to be the customer of preference for those energy generators because they can consume large amounts of energy at source of generation and consume that excess energy. When the grid needs extra energy because it happens to be running short, having Bitcoin miners at the source of energy is excellent because the power generator can curtail the miner. So you can curtail a 100 megawatt block as opposed to the grid operator curtailing your air conditioner, your air conditioner, your air conditioner, your air conditioner, your washing machine, your stove, none of which creates a good customer experience. So the actual, people get mixed up regarding energy thinking, A, energy is a zero-sum game, which it's not. B, by over the next 10 years, renewable energy sources will generate more power than any fossil fuel sources do. So we're moving very rapidly to a world where energy becomes a commodity that is nearly free. And at that point, how you operate a blockchain, whether you're consuming energy or not, provided you're not generating carbon, it's a zero impact.
That's an important point because the global warming emission of carbon is very important. Even we can go for multiple source, but if it is reducing the carbon would be really great. Thank you so much for the clarity. Nice answering, Fred. And quickly, I would like to get on one question. What organizational or cultural change will companies face in making this marriage? Jacob or Ken, who would like to take this question? You are on mute, Jacob.
So you said what do companies need to do what?
Yeah, what is the cultural change needed to make this marriage? Because a lot of companies still not quite ready, and just a technology, or what are the cultural change we have to do? Even anyone can take it.
Gotcha. So the cultural change is significant, and it's the same cultural change that was needed when we started to work remotely. I saw figures this week that says 40% of work in the US is now being done and conducted remotely. And just like that was something which 2 years ago, everyone may have thought impossible. The US people will never work from home. It's proved to be the case. I think in a similar way, the way that IoT and the way that AI and blockchain technologies are changing the way that we interpret or that we interface with our environments, the way that intelligence is added to systems to enhance user experiences, enhance security, enhance carbon efficiency or energy efficiency. I think in the same way that we are seeing those changes, behaviors will follow. So I don't propose that we force behavioral changes onto consumers or onto people. I think it'll be a natural migration as there's trust that's instilled in the new interfaces and in the new systems, and it becomes so pervasive that we don't really know that AI was brought into the equation, or that IoT sensors and a decentralized blockchain was applied to deliver your Uber Eats meal for you, because they knew you were going to order pizza on Friday night.
Kent, do you like to take it?
Yeah, Jack, I really appreciate what you're talking about there about trust. For me, it's very much about trust. And from a technology standpoint, we could go and implement a lot of this tomorrow, but the organizations have to be able to trust the data and where it's coming from. Working in industry and being able to work in especially like manufacturing and refining, a lot of it, there's also organizational changes when you talk about traditional operational technology cultures that use SCADA systems and such, and then having them see IoT come in and really become invasive. There is a big cultural shift between internal organizations as well. And it takes time for that change management to come into play and to work. And so you really have to find ways to bring the people along. The way that I've started looking at it is, thinking about IoT and that convergence with IT and OT as a digital transformation for operational technology. IT organizations have gone through this for the last 10 years. Digital transformation has been a big buzzword, but there's a digital transformation going on as well for operational technology. And how do we get that sensor data from the field and into the cloud? And there's a lot of change that has to go along. And so what I'd like to do is, as we work with companies, it's not only implementing a solid technology solution, but it's also talking about the people and the product that go around that. The technology by itself will die if the people and processes aren't there to support it and help navigate the change through the different levels of the organization, from the C-suite all the way down to the people monitoring and maintaining the devices out in the field.
Kent, the marriage you're talking about is also a marriage between IT and OT, which is a very non-traditional marriage. You have facilities management and IT needing to sit at the same table and agree on using the same data center and the same spaces. So yes, there are. So what I was speaking about was the cultural change and the cultural shifts on the outside or on the client side, but very much so, Kent, as you mentioned, on the back office side and how we deliver it, there needs to be a significant cultural change. Yes.
Sure. Definitely. Go ahead.
One thing that I would tell you from my experience, that the important part of any technology incubation would require a certain amount of, strategic value proposition. So now, the challenge that we have, let's say when we are talking about inheriting clouds, we are basically targeting a small section of the organization who is dealing with infrastructure. When we are talking about mobility, we are taking the construct of consumerization kind of extrapolated in the enterprise. But when you're talking about IoT, it is not a single technology, right? It's a conglomeration of multiple technologies. So it is an experience. It is an architectural pattern that you would like to bring within an organization, which is kind of dealing with the business as usual, and they're okay to deal with the way they're dealing with, right? And I can tell you, like last week, I was talking to one of the partners, and then that individual has spent like 30 years in the oil and gas companies. Now he's started a startup with biomass, and they are actually NSA funded, phase one like us. And he's saying that, okay, when you bring in an automation, I remember those PLCs, those cards we insert. So how do your technology work? So I have spent more time explaining that how this technology is going to work for him, because he's not able to relate that how could you get rid of this traditional control systems and bring in this new technology. So those type of challenges are there. So it is important, if you are talking about an IoT or AI and combination of all of these technologies, you need to start small and see how it works out within your organization, and then gradually replicate it to basically make it a seamless journey. Right.
See, when you talk about this, especially, I understand the technology, cultural thinking, but still keep in mind, it has to start from the resource people, okay? The people mindset has to be, the kind of awareness has to bring into the organization, try to bring the right leadership, top to bottom, not bottom to top. This,
I think we lost Chitrai in the middle.
Yeah, I think we lost his voice.
Yeah, no issues. You can carry on the conversation. So there's another question which I can see, like in regards to marriage of AI, semiotic AI, and their partnership with the graph. Is this a competitor to Iotex, or is my interpretation this is another opportunity to make Iotex more important for the use cases to the Web3 application? So this is one question which I saw from Daniel Dara. Anybody wants to take it? Should I repeat the question? In regards to the marriage of AI, semiotic AI, and their partnership with the graph, is this a competitor to Iotex, or is my interpretation this is another opportunity to make Iotex more important for the use cases to the Web3 applications?
I think you almost have to separate a little bit. Again, think of them as the right tool for the right application, as somebody said earlier. IoT is marrying the collection of data with a communications medium to transmit it, using then AI to analyze it, do something, create an insight, and then act upon it, and then record that on a blockchain, if you look at the 3 steps of that. The blockchain as a solution for data storage and dissemination and sharing provides a trustless environment, high security, and has a lot of benefits to it. How you do your analysis and what's the best methodology for doing the analysis and the best underlying data structure for doing that analysis, I think depends on the use case and how you're going to do these things. Over time, the next 15, 20 years, we're going to see a huge amount of standardization and a huge amount of automation happen, such that these effectively become codeless solutions where you basically just call something and I need this particular intelligence added to this application, and it's one line of code in a configuration, and you're done. So codeless programming at that point. Everything that lies below that is magic in my eyes.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's another question from Vamshi. Perhaps one solution is to store AI models off-chain, like an Oracle. The smart contracts can interact with it. Any thoughts?
Well, why wouldn't you leave the model on-chain? Just my response.
Simple.
And I think if you look at, especially as you go to the world of GANs, right, where you have now multiple AIs at multiple layers competing against each other as a way to get to the best answer. That becomes really interesting, I think, where you can call on any number of different AIs to look at, how do I derive a much better insight, possibly? And, if you look at how DeepMind works and a lot of these applications with multiple layers of AI, essentially not just learning from each other, but controlling each other, you start getting to these didactic systems, which, imagine a world where you could essentially look at a menu of insight tools and learning methodologies and say, okay, I want 1, 2, and 5 with no salt, please. And then off it goes, does what it does, and you get the best answer possible.
Yeah. The last question I think which I can see here is obviously it's based on the blockchain and the mining. The question is by Smile. In order to validate a transaction, it has to be added to a new block. And in order to create a new block, it needs to be mined. In the future, mining a new block will be extremely difficult. Doesn't that mean transactions will take forever to be validated?
No, that's because what you're going to have is near instant finality at layer 2, and then you'll have long-term settlement, inter-party settlement down at layer 1. So that's not the case at all. I mean, you're already seeing with Lightning in the Bitcoin blockchain, transactions that settle faster than the Visa MasterCard network, which is viewed as the gold standard today. So,
yep, mining usually at a scale, mining will always be in isolation. So the layer where you execute the transaction, you'd not do mining, right? So, exactly. And it's the same thing when you are talking about AI. I mean, you'd still be using those models, but they would not be sitting on the same runtime because your model will continue to train and learn. And that's what we do in human life as well. As I'm speaking, I'm still running my models behind the brain to basically be more, effective in terms of communicating my thoughts, right? So the same thing going to happen. So it's more of a distributed, layered architecture that we would be embedding as we move forward.
I'm really sorry. Apologies. The system kicked me out. I'm trying to log in.
So let Chitray join. So there's another interesting point. I think it's for Fred, what he answered a few minutes back. Vamshi is telling, love that answer, but working with third world countries, we have challenges. So how do you address that?
So working with third world countries in which way? Because some of the biggest adopters of cryptocurrencies are third world countries whose currencies are dysfunctional, to say the least. As well as police states who want to use digital currencies as a way to control their societies. So you have both extremes, I think.
I think it's also developing countries have an opportunity to leapfrog many of the developed countries because they're investing in new technologies. So I think it's a misnomer to say that developed countries have benefits or have a step ahead. I think the people-centric focus on solving many of tomorrow's problems or today's problems is equally applicable to a developed country as it is to a developing country. If you look at, for example, what's happening in Kenya, there's a massive investment in technology there, and it's almost like a second Silicon Valley. And you would say, well, why is Kenya, where majority of people live under $1 a day, being labeled the Silicon Valley, in stark contrast to California Silicon Valley, where the levels are much higher from a financial perspective. So I would caution against that assumption and say that it's a very equal playing field. And this decentralized, the very nature of it means literally everyone has an opportunity to leverage the technology at any point in time. Yes, there are realistic challenges that different countries face. So I'm not agnostic to that, but I think there are opportunities.
Yeah, just look at what happened with the China shutting down the Bitcoin blockchain in China. 50% of the global hash rate was shut down in a very short period of time, and the system had zero hiccups in that system. And then just to the last point that was mentioned, the M-Pesa project in Kenya, allowing goat herders to effectively trade. Talk about a leapfrog. Where that was an amazing thing, where they just used points on phones as a way to create a marketplace. So
I don't know what was the question going on. Let me quickly get on to the track.
Chitray, please take it forward. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. One of the question is, do you think really big companies needs to invest more on this kind of marriages, or is there any companies or any big government are trying to do this in the industry now?
I'll go ahead. I'll jump in there first. We talked a little bit about this earlier, and I think some of the speakers touched on this as well, where people who aren't investing in IoT, AI, and I think blockchain as well are being left behind when it comes back to return on investment and being able to be in a playing field that's where people are looking to go. I see that the IoT for sure is really helping across manufacturing, supply chain, smart spaces, a number of different industries and verticals to where it's really going to be hard to be competitive unless you adopt some of these technologies. And then as we talked about a little bit before, being able to weave in and being able to measure your ESG, your carbon footprint, those type of things as well, also are going to have a big impact. I think more and more people are going to want to know what the impact of their choices are having on society and on the planet. So if I stay in apartment building X versus apartment building Y, what's my impact going to be? What's my carbon footprint? And people are going to want to have that data, and it's going to be really hard to do it without these technologies as a foundation.
Get it. Anyone else to take this point?
I think the big companies would have the muscle power to invest a lot of money. But then what we have witnessed, not with the IoT, with the combination of IoT and AI that we are working, we are seeing more tractions. Companies which are medium to large, to be more precise, because they have the appetite, and we usually term something called a status quo bias. I mean, you imagine a company which has invested millions of dollars over a period of time to bring in some state-of-the-art industrial automation in the last 20 years. It is very difficult for them to change and shift gears and try to get into something which is very disruptive in nature. Right. So it becomes very difficult for them to embrace that. But of course, when they're talking about new technologies, I mean, it is easier for someone like an automotive company to look at a driverless vehicle and bring in sophisticated IoT and AI rather than implementing IoT and AI to manage their work in progress or a quality control. Right. So it all depends the nature of solutions and applications and use cases that we are targeting. It would be a mix and match, but I would say that medium to large scale companies are more proactive in terms of driving this innovation as we speak, as opposed to the larger organizations.
There's definitely the investment is I think channeling its way through to the smaller companies, to the entrepreneurial shops that are more nimble. The large companies, like you're saying, Prasenjit, is so Siemens and the larger entities. They want the technology, they want to leverage it. They don't have the ability to turn around as quickly as the smaller companies do. I mean, just the question that was raised earlier around the graph, they gave 60 million to company Semiotic to develop and explore specific focus areas. So I think the answer lies in, as references one of the examples that we have faced that we received earlier from the audience.
Absolutely. I would like to take some question also now. Please go ahead.
Sorry. So another segment. So I agree in terms of the medium enterprises and the smaller enterprises contributing significantly in terms of building use cases or adopting to use cases, and a lot of POCs are getting driven in that segment. Though an investment from an investment point of view, as Prasenjit was saying, that there is a challenge. But as far as blockchain use cases and implementations are concerned globally today, I think the largest segment that is really, investing and adopting is the government segment, right? So across countries, there are tremendous number of blockchain use cases which are now getting implemented, and we experience it, with all our automation implementations. That's another segment which is very, very rapidly growing in the blockchain adoption.
Absolutely. I think government is one of the important sector which is moving towards this. That's a very good point. Even someone questioned here also about how the government sector is moving towards. And see, there's a lot of regulation policy still has to come over. It is not quite mature. Each organization, for example, recently India banned cryptocurrency, right? So they don't want to more kind of. There's a lot of still policies are not matured enough to say, but it's growing perspective. Let me take one question from Ismail A. Perhaps one solution is to store AI model off chain like an Oracle. The smart contract can interact with it. Any thoughts?
No, I think centralization of models within the construct of blockchain actually defeat the purpose of using a decentralization, because when you are talking about, here is the thing, when we look at it, if you just forget everything and look at it from a typical architectural patterns that we embed into this type of application, blockchain is a decentralized application by virtue of its inter-application interactions, right? It is not application as a whole, but it's a sort of a relationship that you establish among multiple applications. And then each of these would have their own imperatives in terms of dealing with the same data, right? So obviously, if you are talking about centralization of model, you are defeating the very purpose of deploying blockchain in an inter-application, collaboration across the value chain. So that is very critical. So you don't want to come up with a model. I mean, even if it is a vendor driven, you'd like to see that how you could decentralize these models and allow them to, mature over a period of time. That's very critical. In that way, these particular interactions are happening. So the interaction patterns are the key construct for you to have these inter-applications kind of learning from each other and thereby gaining, better insights.
Any other points before I move to other questions? Hope it answered, Ismail. The other question is especially on the in regard to the marriage of AI, semiotic AI.
This question has been taken, Chitra. I think this question we have taken, and we have the last question.
How do you promote the marriage of AI, IoT, and blockchain in highly sensitive government entities? Can you advise how to leapfrog this, especially in the medical fraternity?
I think in the medical space, for one thing, there have been multiple attempts at centralized data systems, even regional medical systems where you try and centralize medical data. But at the end of the day, I think the solution we're going to see is there will be a blockchain layer 2, if you would, system where patients put their data on the blockchain and medical providers input data onto that blockchain. And the patient issues a token to any provider who needs access to that data. And that token can provide visibility. It doesn't allow the data to move. It doesn't allow the data to be changed. It simply exposes the data for a period of time. And when that, like a smart contract, right? And then once the case with that particular provider is done, they no longer have access to it. And if insurance companies need access to it for underwriting, the patient can provide access to it. And if a pharmaceutical company wants access to their medical records for studies basis, the consumer can decide whether they want to share that data and get paid for it potentially. And the basis for those systems may be what Microsoft is developing with their ION project, which is an identity system that resides on the blockchain. Once you're managing identity on the blockchain, you can now manage anything related to that identity. So that could be financial data, healthcare data, et cetera. So I think we're going to start seeing those types of systems appearing on the blockchain independent of central authorities.
Makes sense.
Now, from an IoT perspective, I would say that, I've been editing a journal called JMIR, the Journal of Medical Informatics, published from Switzerland. And we have been seeing very interesting papers and publications and researches in and around, automating certain processes, bringing robotic process automation in terms of managing healthcare. But then if we look at it from a regulatory aspects, right? So IoT and AI, of course, in combination to blockchain. Blockchain brings, as rightly mentioned, that blockchain can bring in sort of an authenticity in terms of who can use the patient data. But when it's a highly regulated data that you're dealing with, and they're very sensitive to the life, then the important part is you could use AI and IoT to get certain understanding of patient conditions and then maybe certain patterns, but you definitely not rely on system to take any action on the patients, right? So, which is not that critical when it comes to an industrial IoT, but in healthcare, we are not yet there to really have machines taking control of the actual therapy that needed to be performed.
I think it comes back to one of the themes that's been weaving in and out of our conversation today, and that's trust. As we begin to work on the blockchain and even with the AI models, it takes time to build trust in machines and in the code and in the logic that we put in there. And it's not going to be an overnight switch, but we're going to have to generally, for these highly sensitive entities, whether it's healthcare, maybe it's financial data or other industries, it's going to take time, and you're going to have to work through a maturity model of maybe smaller use cases to gain trust with your users and society in general until we move into more automated systems that have a potentially greater impact on society.
So in this context, I'll bring in a very interesting value proposition, rather in the mind share, that with the proliferation of these advanced technologies, what is happening, we are actually building certain expectations in the industry, in the entire ecosystem, that there would be certain autonomous functions, right? Now, when we are talking about these autonomies, like, for example, one of the implementations that we are working with one of the world's largest mobile energy storage. So we are talking about the DERs, right? Distributed energy resources, because we will be decentralizing the generation of power. Now, when it is within the boundary of more centralized distributions or transmission or generation, you still have sort of an organizational construct that can manage this. So imagine that now you are creating thousands of generation centers, thousands of distribution and transmission. It is literally impossible for a human to go and literally manage those. So we are heading towards sort of a future wherein we have to rely on machines to do that. Right? And we have to do this because when, like, for example, there's a use case when would we actually charge and discharge the storage would depend on how your demand is fluctuating, your peak and off peak is fluctuating. And this is something which it can happen so frequently that you cannot have a person literally going and switching the switch on and off, that, okay, this time you charge and this time you discharge. So we are heading towards that world that where we have to do that. So sooner and later, we have to gain that maturity. But I think if we look at the verticals, I would say healthcare probably the last vertical where you look, really get into that model wherein a robot is literally doing an open heart surgery.
True. But still, how we are going to depend on machine, no question about it, but is it reliable? The question is, how reliable is the question? I'm not going to give the robot to do my heart surgery operation or something to someone. But still, future is going to be like that. There is no question because of more matured model. But where are we now? Yes, we are still looking forward more time to mature in that level. Just getting to other question. I know we are talking about AI, IoT, blockchain, all. End of the day, the company, all these are doing especially two reasons. One is for customer satisfaction, to make it quick, everything to happen, and real time. The second thing is the company wants to make money, ROI. Okay, this is very two important pillar for the company to do this too. But all these technologies are going to increase the cost of the company, right? Especially when you talk about this situation, do you think all size of the company can adopt this technology now? Are we ready, or do we take 5 years, 10 years? We have to come into that level. What do you guys think that side?
I would challenge the statement that this technology is more costly to implement than current solutions. So working through different use cases, right? And it's very use case driven, but I keep coming back to some of the ESG and environmental reporting stuff is where we're working with a large oil and gas provider. And what we found is that it costs them 100x more to deploy their sensors and remote monitoring the old way as opposed to an IoT pattern that we worked with them to do. And that 100x savings adds up really quick. And so being able to find these new, more cost-effective ways to be able to monitor your data, get the sensors and the reporting, I think is applicable across the industries. And to me, it's more about taking the costs and the savings from there and investing it into IoT, AI, blockchain, other enabling technologies, where we'll be able to see more and more return on your investment across the enterprise.
See, this is a very interesting question we come across all the time. So one is, someone has to prioritize that what they want to achieve out of, IoT or AI deployments, right? So for example, if you are looking at certain use cases which might give you some level of acceleration in terms of what you want to achieve as a business organization, you'd like to start at a small scale and see whether it works, as opposed to go and procure a large cloud infrastructure with a lot of, boxes of Sparks and Hadoops and stuff. And I have seen that all the time, right? So you have invested and you literally haven't used it for 2 years to the scale that you could leverage. So the cost of technology is much lesser. I mean, if you go to ABB, Siemens, G part of the world, and if you try to bring in some of their traditional technology to manage and monitor your assets, you might land up spending more than deploying an IoT solution. That's right.
You nailed it. Exactly, you nailed it. Because when the problem is on the cloud, keep going.
And number two is, you'd see that there are use cases which are otherwise not achieved through your traditional IT and operations. You're replacing that, so you can always do. I have not seen, believe me, in 20 years, I have not seen anything which is more closer to, gaining a standard ROI proof points, than IoT itself. And IoT is kind of a foundation that can directly give you the ROI proof points in terms of, substituting your FTE or certain processes which are taking, much longer time. For example, let's say if you have deployed IoT and get some real-time data and analyzing this real-time data in your manufacturing supply chain, you are doing quality control on the fly, right? Rather than relying on a sort of a process by which you have products, you do some random testing, product goes into the market, and then you are relying on the reverse supply chain to bring the product back. So the amount of money that you spend in terms of dealing with such kind of catastrophic failures is going to be minimized significantly. So, of course, there are definitely clear value propositions. So if you work with companies who are experienced in terms of providing the right directions, I think you can definitely make the best out of the box.
I think we are on top of time. Thank you so much, Prasenjit. You nailed the cloud problem as well, because people are thinking still cloud, if you have, they're opening the cloud environment, servers, all the cost is keep going, but they are not using it. That's one of the important basic problem I figured out most of the customers. That's true as well. Thank you so much for all of your time. I think we are top of the head. Anything would you like to take from here?
Yeah, sure. Anybody wants to give a last touch? We have 1 minute left for this panel discussion, which was very exciting. I loved it. This was just the last panel discussion of this year, which we are hosting from this platform. And I think it was a great one.
I'll just add a word, Nitin, or rather just so I think the topic was so appropriate that this is the topic that is going to make every technologist's life very, very exciting in the next 10 years is what we, firmly
When I
believe.
chose this topic for this month, I was very categorized that I will choose the best topic for the whole year is ending and this December month. So I chose this particular topic, marriage of AI, IoT, and blockchain. I know it's a very interesting topic. All these three technologies are the buzzwords, and these are making way for any company. Yeah. Thank you guys for the lovely panel discussion from Chitrai moderating it in a very great way. Prasanjit, Amit, Jacko, Kent, Fred. Fred, I think, has just left, but it was a great one. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. It was a
pleasure.
Thank you. We'll stay connected. Thanks.
Thanks. Pleasure.
So now we will move on to our next presenter. We are exactly on time. So we have Dave, who is founder and CEO Q-Secure. His topic is also very, very exciting. Quantum could be a major threat to AI, IoT, and blockchain. So over to you, Dave, and let's see what you have in store for us.
Great. Thank you, guys. Hang on. I'm clearly getting... good morning, everybody. Let me share this back out. And we are going to talk about trust in the post-quantum world. There you go. Can you all see my screen?
Yes. You can make it in the presentation. Yes. Perfect.
Great, team. I've got 15 minutes to make you all PhDs in quantum physics, and I'm going to run really fast to do that. So Dave Crothmer, I'm the CEO of Q-Secure. I was a CIO in my early life in telecom, went on to create a company that became Oracle's largest cloud partner. Our CTO was the head of cyber at Qualcomm. We've got the president of ARM. We're working with Google. Lots of cool stuff. Great team. What we do is, I'm glad we were talking about trust. We're going to talk about trust in the post-quantum world. So Q-Secure provides quantum security as a service that addresses the most vulnerable aspects of your network, which are extraordinarily relevant in IoT and ML. That's from zero trust endpoint management, unbreakable quantum keys, ultra-fast transport protocols, to next generation post-quantum crypto and legacy switching. The problem. So it is said now that one foreign nation state is spending up to $100 billion to build a quantum computer that can break our crypto. And as it relates to IoT, the crypto on IoT, because IoT is very CPU starved, tends to be down rev crypto, RSA or elliptic curve, and extremely vulnerable. So the onset of these quantum computers are going to have a significant impact on our overall security. So they're calling this their Manhattan Project. They have their Oppenheimer. They have actually 1,800 quantum engineers working on this problem, on cracking our security. That's more quantum engineers than we have quantum engineers in the US. So like the Manhattan Project, we won't fully realize how devastating this is until it's too late. And so we've got a number of problems that relates to security in the post-quantum world. One is steal now, decrypt later. It's said that one foreign nation state has already harvested up to 25% of the global encrypted data. They've said prepare for war. War is quantum. When they have these capabilities, which we'll go into in a minute, they're going to be able to burn through all the data they've already taken and the data they continue to take on a daily basis. China and Russia are ahead in this. They're doing really well. And, we get any disruption in communication, especially at a wholesale grade, that it could destroy our economy. This is your 90-second PhD in quantum physics, quantum mechanics, et cetera, et cetera. So conventional computers have a very small word size, 64 bits. And we've kind of conquered the world of linear problems because we can run these instructions really quickly. And we've become very efficient at linear processing. But linear processing is a subset of real world problems. And Richard Feynman, the famous physicist, said some 50 years ago, if you want to solve problems in nature, you need quantum. So let's go into a quantum circuit. And this is the kind of high level view. So in a quantum circuit, the bits are called qubits, which translates into an atom or a subatomic particle. Now, those atoms and subatomic particles demonstrate quantum mechanical properties, the first of which is called superposition, which means the bit can be 1, 0, anything in between. It can be in another universe, and et cetera, as you guys see in the movies now. Everyone's referencing quantum. So it's great because that bit's super dynamic. We also use the second principle of quantum mechanics, which is called entanglement, where I can connect these bits together. So the beauty of creating a quantum circuit is that every additional bit you add is exponentially increases the word length. So Google's bristlecone, 73 quantum bits, the instruction is equivalent to a iota bit of data, which is equivalent to all the data stored in the world in the last year in one instruction. So you can imagine you can solve massively parallel problems now in a fraction of time. Where that's relevant, let's think about the use cases. So if I'm looking at complex systems like molecular simulation, weather simulation, or even neural nets. So let's think about the most complicated neural net we know, which is the human brain. You guys have about 1 trillion neurons. I'm sure at this point I have a lot less. But understanding that complex system linearly, meaning instruction or data point by data point, will never give me an understanding of 1 trillion neurons. So to truly enable us to understand these complex systems, we're going to need quantum processing and quantum computing. Give you a little idea about the power at the atomic level. If you took your thumb and I fused the atoms together that were in the tip of your thumb, I could create enough power to power the city of San Francisco for a day. So when we get down to that atomic level, there's enormous power and capability. This is wonderful for these problems we can't solve right now, but it's really bad for security because security is largely based on prime number factorization. Quantum computers are really good at that. So all our security systems are vulnerable to these threats or will be vulnerable to these threats, especially IoT, which, as I said, is a CPU-starved environment. So the crypto on IoT is generally completely scaled down. So like I said, these foreign nation states have already have like 25% of our global encrypted data. That's a problem because they will be able to crack it with quantum computers. So we are focused on finance, banking, healthcare, defense, energy, and critical infrastructure to protect you from these and existing threats. Let's go into a little bit about what we got today. This is the network we have today. So when the internet was established, it was established to communicate, and security was an afterthought. So we set up these structures like public key infrastructure where Nitin needs to go out and prove he's Nitin to a third party, but the problem is Dave can hack into his channel and pretend he's Nitin and then take over the channel. There's vulnerabilities at every dimension of the communications in this process. Let's start with key generation. Right now, we generate pseudo keys, which means they're algorithmic. We generate one per session, typically, with an IoT device. The challenge is that I can use cryptanalysis and machine learning now to decode that key and take over the circuit. So that's a big problem, right? I can take it over. I can do side channel attacks, pretending to be the CA. You guys all saw SolarWinds, man in the middle attacks. So the network we have today, there are vulnerabilities if I want to exploit them at every point in the communication channel. So what we're doing, or what QSecure does, is we're building out what we call the quantum constellation on Earth and in space. And what the quantum constellation is, it's a network of quantum orchestrators, and they generate like true quantum entropy or random numbers, and then they populate them into a software channel via a very sophisticated traveling salesman mechanism. And then they populate a pipeline, and let's go to the IoT device so I can quantum secure that channel in software. So I either put a widget of code on the IoT device or a software connector, and then I use our cloud first constellation to communicate the security structures. And I can do that all in software. One really important element as architects we face is, how do I roll out these new forms of security and technology in a complex network, right? So what we also do is what we call protocol switching. So we allow you to sub-isolate a component of your network. Let's say it's an IoT field or an array, sensing array, and energy or healthcare. We allow you to sub-isolate that, upgrade it to a post-quantum structure, but then talk in the standard languages outside of that, so you don't have to upgrade your network. This is super relevant in energy and healthcare, where their systems are generally very, very old. I mean, we've got a lot of old technology in those application sets. So this gives you a way to kind of take the newest, greatest form of your network, upgrade it, and then have it live within the cloud, within your existing infrastructure. Super, super important. We're also doing this in space. We're going to be on the ISS next year and launching in space to protect space assets, but also to protect, IoT fields, drones, not network connected devices or network starved devices, planes, trains, drones, et cetera, et cetera. So we service that from space. So just a quick summary: quantum resilient to any device. It's really important that this is ubiquitous, and we protect you from the existing threats like cryptanalysis, side channel. So we have this advanced mesh network with what we call parallel key distribution, hyper secure, hyper fast, all NIST based, all standards based. So as you deploy this stuff, it's super important to be standards based because no one will adopt it. And it also does, from a trust perspective, self-authentication with zero trust at the endpoint. So when we set up a connection to an IoT device, the device registers, and we are only talking to that device because we brought up trust as a significant issue. We do trust on the communication channel. And so that device is only talking to the device selected, and we can enforce that in software. I agree with you guys on the panel that trust is a major, major issue, and we facilitate that all in software. I'll let you guys dig in on the questions. So, we use NIST. It's really super important for approved cryptographic algorithms. We on the key side, guys, you'll often hear the entropy term, which is the second law of thermodynamics. And entropy just means order to disorder. So when you think about keys, they refer to them as entropy. You want the most randomness, and a quantum key is the most random number in the universe, strangely enough. Think of a quantum random number generator as the opposite of a quantum computer. In a quantum computer, we're trying to control the bits. In a quantum random number generator, we're trying to let them dissipate into quantum randomness. So right now we use pseudo-random keys, which are algorithmic, which I can hack, but a quantum key you literally can't hack. We package those together in our channel, distribute them via software, do self-authentication, enablement, and we're also rolling out a machine learning capability at the end device level, which will determine whether that device has been hacked within the channel. So kind of a merging of the capabilities. I'm gonna actually hold off now and take questions. I know it's a lot of material to throw at you really quickly, so please ask a ton of questions. Let's see. Nitin, is there a question room or?
Yeah, Dave. So we are here, and I can see the question and answers if any comes in between. Okay. So
yeah, the field of quantum, guys, is really fascinating, and it's really going to enable some significant capabilities at the edge of the network in IoT and computing, and bring with it a whole host of challenges. And it's just a fascinating field. We're partnering with Google, with everybody, to help protect the world, to create a safer future.
Yeah, and there's a comment from Vamshi that obviously his favorite topic is quantum trust and integrity, and he agrees that we are working for future, not to have one more Manhattan project.
Yeah. I mean, there's this beauty to what quantum computers will be able to do. In the U.S., obviously, a year and a half ago, when you talked about quantum, everyone was like, yeah, it's 30 years from now. But now IBM, Google, everyone said we're going to have 1 million quantum computers by 2025. So, I was just on Sunday with the incoming CEO at Google, Sandbox of Quantum, and it's a really fascinating field. It's a fascinating field, and the security side is really pretty crazy and definitely warrants taking a look at. So if there are no questions, I don't know.
Yeah, so we'll wait for 1 minute. So yeah, there's one question which is there for you, Dave, from Praveen. Are there any minimum data requirements for quantum?
In data size, you mean? Or, well, let me differentiate why you'd use a conventional computer or a quantum computer and how it relates to data. We will always use conventional computers to front end a quantum computer. Quantum computers are not good at writing a UI or, algorithmic stuff. They're great for these problems that have many, many variables. So a quantum computer will likely almost always sit behind. Now, the interesting thing about a quantum computer is it's generating a lot of data because it can do it literally at an atomic level. There's huge sums of massive amounts of data. There aren't, but typically the questions we ask quantum computers are pretty complicated. How many molecules are in the air in your room? They're tough questions. We're also working with NVIDIA. They have the largest quantum simulator in the world. And so I think as it relates to IoT, the big use case is securing IoT, right? Gaining trust in IoT. These devices are proliferating at a huge rate, like in healthcare. We have to build a level of trust with the vendors, like with the customers, like in healthcare. And to do that, we have to take into account the threats. There isn't a minimum amount of data in quantum, but it tends to generate a ton of data. And then we talk about quantum memory, which is going to come out. And this is really fascinating because now we're starting to look at the world at an atomic level, and you can do some really cool stuff. You could theoretically store a lot of data. Like I said, there's enough power in my thumb to power San Francisco for a day. If you imagine storing data in my thumb at an atomic level, you could clearly store all the information in the world in my thumb. We'll call it a thumb drive, a quantum thumb drive. But you can imagine. Now, when it comes to data, we shard the data with these quantum keys. So right now, when I send out a file, it has one key. We'll literally embed up to 60,000 quantum keys per second in these data structures. So good luck hacking them. Ain't gonna happen.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, and thank you for a lovely presentation and lovely answers for the question. It was really interesting to have you, and have a lovely day and happy holidays for the whole December month. We'll stay connected. Thank you, Dave. Bye. So now we have our next presenter is there, Anita Jindal. She's Senior Director Engineering in VMware, and her topic is practical strategies for building large-scale systems using IoT and AI. So over to you, Anita.
Okay. Share my screen?
Yes. Yeah, we can see that. You can just put it in the presentation mode, and I think it's good to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nitin, can you hear me fine?
Yes, absolutely. We can hear you. We can see your presentation as well, Anita.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. This is Anita Jindal. I'm the Senior Director of Engineering at VMware. Today, we will talk about practical strategies for building large-scale systems, especially when it comes to IoT and AI. We need specialized systems. The space of IoT and AI has been growing, and the companies are using IoT data and AI for providing differentiated customer experiences and the personalized experiences. In 2010, the space of big data started growing. There was large volume of data being transmitted by the sensors, devices. We heard from Dave about quantum computers, which is coming into existence. And it's all coming at a very high speed and growing exponentially. Therefore, the companies had to build specialized systems to be able to handle the scale and the speed of data for providing customer value. In 2015, cloud offered the abundance of compute and innovative technologies. With cloud, the whole landscape changed. There were a lot of companies which came into this space of providing value from IoT data and using AI. There were new companies for rideshare companies which came into existence, and they are able to use the data and understand the demand and traffic conditions and adjust their prices. The crisis management teams are able to use the data for serving the communities that are impacted by disasters. If you look at all the retailers today, they are using the data about user preferences and your browsing history for providing personalized recommendations on the products to buy, the movies to watch. And you have seen that it has become a new norm now about personalized recommendations. We also heard about autonomous industries, autonomous cars, autonomous driving, and this powered by AI is it's emerging, and we will start seeing a lot of innovation in this particular field. Now we will talk about, with the growth of data, there has been a constant shift in the industry from data analysis to data science to machine learning. Around decades ago, each business function had their own data warehouses. They curated the data and established their data warehouses and hired a set of data analysts which would go in and provide insights or business intelligence from this data. This data was siloed, it wasn't shared among business functions, and the speed of insights which could be derived from this data was limited by the size of these dedicated teams. With the growth in data, there was a need to democratize data and to enable self-service to derive insights from this data for the data scientists to explore this data, for the machine learning engineers to train their machine learning models. And that's when the concept of data lake was established and came into picture. So data lake is a combination or a repository of the structured and unstructured data. It also enables you to blend the data from the already established data warehouses, which were built over time by the business functions. And over these data lakes, there are a set of tools and technologies which are used by the data analysts for exploring and retrieving insights. This also serves as a platform for the machine learning engineers to train their machine learning models. So data lake enabled the centralization of data across the different functions in a company and enable the digital transformation as the insights could be used by the data scientists, and the machine learning engineers could derive the insights from this as well. Since building the systems which can work with large amounts of data require the compute, the storage, and a whole shebang of large systems. With the evolution of cloud, there was cloud offered on-demand compute, elasticity for scale, new innovative technologies, as well as the lowered the total cost of ownership. Therefore, it was a very attractive space for building these large-scale systems and for building these machine learning models. With cloud, the enterprises could now use the cloud compute and scale up or scale down their resources based on operational needs. With respect to building and experimentation with the new technologies in cloud, it was as simple as for developers to get into the cloud, get the technologies they wanted to experiment with, develop their models, and put them into production. There was no longer a need to engage with the IT teams for the installation of the new technologies. Cloud also lowered the total cost of ownership. Initially, when the systems were built on-prem, and you might remember this, that every year the companies had to go through the capacity planning to acquire the new infrastructure and plan that out with their IT teams. If they had to install new technologies, that was also planned with the IT teams. With evolution of cloud, since you can scale the resources up and down and acquire the resources you need, you can there is no longer a need to engage with your IT teams. If you want to do a technology refresh, it's as simple as standing up a stack or spinning up a stack of the technologies that you need, testing out your software and rolling it out into production. So today, I will share with you unique design patterns on how you can build your large scale systems to handle the IoT and AI. When I started my big data journey in around 2012, we built our big data ingestion pipeline on-prem, and this particular pipeline was ingesting and processing the data and surfacing the insights for our customers through an application which was also hosted on-prem. We also established a data lake on-prem, which included structured and unstructured data and blended the data from our existing data warehouses. We provided a set of tools and technologies to enable self-service for our internal business teams and the product teams so that they could derive insights for internal business transformations. As cloud started coming into play, we wanted to leverage the technological innovations from the cloud while preserving our investments into the technologies and into the systems that we had already built. Therefore, we started using the cloud innovation for providing frameworks for quickly building out our analytical services. We used the analytical and machine learning models, the technologies for training our machine learning models. We use the foundational technologies of the cloud for building the APIs to our analytical services and providing the services to our customers so that they could interact with our services. And we still had our application on-prem, which provided the value from our on-prem system as well as the cloud system to our customers. At present or currently, I'm leading the engineering for Skyline product at VMware that provides proactive intelligence to VMware customers to avoid disruptions before they occur. With Skyline, as the data is streaming in from the products, we are detecting the patterns and offering recommendations along with corrective actions to our customers. With Skyline, as we have been on the path to evolve Skyline, we originally had the functionality on-prem as with typical systems, and then as our data was growing, as our customer base was growing, and we wanted to increase the speed of insights, we re-engineered the whole backend of Skyline and built it in cloud. So now we have our data ingestion pipeline in cloud, which is receiving the data, processing the data, and providing insights to our customers. We also established the data lake in cloud using cloud technologies. We are using cloud technologies for training our machine learning models. We are using cloud technologies for enabling us to provide the visualizations of the analytics that we are deriving from our data lake to our internal business teams. We kept our customer-facing application Skyline on-prem, and this is how we have preserved our investment in the current architecture while building the whole the data lake and the ingestion pipeline in cloud. Now let's talk about, for the people who are on this at this conference, if you're starting your journey from scratch and are looking to build large-scale systems with to support IoT data and want to support machine learning, you might want to build your entire system in cloud. The reason is cloud provides foundational technologies. It provides a lot of technologies that can help you speed up and accelerate your speed of innovation for building your products and making them available to your customers. You can scale your systems based on the load and the demand of your customers, and you're reducing the total cost of ownership if you are using cloud for building your systems. While building the large scale systems in cloud, especially, there are certain architectural considerations or factors that we should consider. The first one is, and foremost, is the cost. So we should understand the cost of building our entire system in cloud. What kind of compute instances should we be using? And what kind of storage types should we be using for building our entire system? Because the cost is different for the storage types and the size of the compute resources. We should also pay attention to how much data we will be moving out of the cloud. While there is no cost for moving the data into the cloud, there is a cost associated with moving the data out of the cloud. We should focus on automation and automating frameworks and templates to reduce the cloud complexity and to accelerate the speed of innovation. The development teams and the operations team should work together for automating the CI/CD pipelines, which would enable you to deploy and test your code through different environments until it reaches production. Security is a major factor that we should pay attention to. And it's very important that we engage with our security teams, the enterprise security architects early on in the process to review the security architecture and work with our legal teams on reviewing the privacy for the product that we're building. Since there is a lot of technology provided by cloud, as we are building the systems, we should evaluate the technologies which are already available in the cloud that we can use as foundational components for building our product rather than building everything from scratch. This will help us to deliver our product and accelerate the speed of delivery for our products externally to the market. Observability is key. When we are building the large scale and complex systems, we should understand in these systems the different points of failure, and we should be able to understand the complete health and operations of the system. Therefore, build the observability hooks within the code itself, which could be used by the operations team for building the overall dashboards so that they have complete view into the health and operations of the system. And the alerts from these dashboards should be integrated with either PagerDuty or some other tools that you're using for bringing the appropriate teams onto a call for resolving the issues. Since we are dealing with big data and there is abundance of data, the data keeps on growing in our systems. Therefore, we have to be very savvy about how much data we want to retain in our systems. And if there are certain use cases which require data more frequently than the other data which is least frequently used, we can further optimize the cost by keeping the data which is most frequently used in the hard storage and then moving the data which is least frequently used to least cost storage or an archival storage. As we talked about, with the abundance of data and with the cloud innovations and with the IoT data and machine learning, there is a lot of value that companies are providing to the customers. We talked about personalized experiences which are being provided to customers by retailers based on the user browser history and what we like. Applications like Skyline provide proactive intelligence to VMware customers to upgrade and operate their data centers. And this is all based on the insights that we receive from the data. This data can also be used for driving business transformation. So let's spend some time on that. So when we talk about business transformation from the data lake, you can be using your teams, product teams can be using these insights for understanding how certain features are being used by customers to guide their decisions for roadmap and investments into certain features. Your quality teams can understand how the product is being used and in different environments so that they can improve the quality of the product by understanding customer behavior and following and defining the testing strategies for the product. Sales and in marketing teams can use this data internally to understand where they need to direct their marketing dollars for increasing the product adoption. The executives can use the insights from this data to understand how the new product is being adopted by customers across different geographies. And this is all power of IoT data, the machine learning, and all the insights that we can derive and provide, the value we can provide on top of it. So in summary, so what we can say is that cloud has really accelerated the speed of innovation and enabled us to build specialized large-scale systems which really require a lot of compute and the innovation in the technologies for providing insights to the customers. While cloud is providing this innovation, enterprises are still adopting hybrid architectures to adopt the cloud innovation, but at the same time, preserve the investments that they have already made. Due to the innovations in cloud and the lower total cost of ownership in acquiring new hardware and the tech refresh, there is a lot of trend in adopting cloud for building workloads and moving workloads to cloud. So as you're looking at building the systems which can cater to the IoT data and AI, I encourage you to evaluate different clouds which are out there and the technologies that they provide to see how you can use them to accelerate your speed of innovation for providing customer value and for getting your product into the market. So best of luck with building your large scale systems and for delivering customer value. And here are my coordinates. If you can follow me on Twitter. So my Twitter handle is @AnitaJindal12 and my LinkedIn is Anita Jindal. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you. Thank you for a lovely presentation and showing us, means audience as well, that how we can use some practical strategies to build large-scale systems using IoT and AI. I think it was a very interesting discussion which we witnessed just now. There's one question for you, Anita, which I can see from Daniel Dara. Do you believe that we are months away from this implementation or years away from this implementation?
So actually, you can take steps. We have heard about agile development. So I would say it can be done within a year, and within months to a year, you will have to plan how you want to build the technology and how you want to deliver the technology. And that's where cloud can play a big role, because you can use a lot of foundational technologies from the cloud for accelerating the speed of development. So pay attention to automating, doing a lot of automation so that you can reuse that in your ongoing development as well. Because if you wait for years, or it takes years to provide this value, you have lost your.
Does anybody wait years now?
It doesn't work in this area anymore.
Correct. This means the world is moving at such a fast pace.
Yes.
And the technology is evolving every day. Every seconds, I think it is doing wonders. I think, you have to adopt. That is I think, only mantra. Correct, Anita?
Yeah.
Thank you, Anita, for the lovely presentation and lovely answer. Love to stay connected with you as well. Have a lovely holiday, which is coming up now. and we'll stay connected. We'll connect with you in the near future. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. We'd love to have you. Now we'll move to Sharda Bose, great speaker as well. Lovely interacting with you, Sharda. Always, I love your comments. And she's the founding member and business head Way.com, and maybe you can guide audience about you, what you are. You obviously, your topic is early experiments with IoT in parking. This is the topic. So over to you, Sharda. Thank you.
Thank you, Naveen. Nitin, sorry, let me make sure you can see my slides. Give me a minute.
Yep.
Here we go.
So in the meanwhile, Sharda is preparing. For the audience who have joined late, you can type in the questions if you have for Sharda or the coming speakers as well. Like we have 2 talks left for the day. One is from Sharda. The next is by Amit Kachru. So if you have any questions, just type it in the Q&A section and we'll get it answered after the end of the session. Over to you, Sharda. Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, you can make it in the full screen mode. Presentation mode, yeah.
Absolutely. Are we good?
No, perfect.
Are we good? All right. First of all, thank you very much for the team at AI Core Sport. It is indeed an honor and a pleasure to present. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sharda Bose, and I've been trained by education to be have my bachelor's and master's degree in computer science in the US. And I worked at HP, which is the huge computer giant, for 24 years. I spent my career there doing everything from all kinds of hardware work to operating systems, compilers, applications, you name it, the whole gamut for 24 years. It's a long time. You can and HP is a very large company. You have access to a lot of different things. I left HP. I played around in a couple of startups, and that's a very, very unique opportunity for very few people. I live in the Silicon Valley in the US. I live in the Bay Area, right in the middle of Silicon Valley. And that's for the rest of the world, people wonder what it is to live like in the Silicon Valley. You live in a bubble. That's literally what it is. We live here in a bubble. And that said, today I'm going to tell you guys a story about what it is to work in a startup. A lot of people wish to work in a startup. They wonder what it is to work in a startup, have worked in startups, and experiences might be different, but the challenges, clearly there's lots of innovations and ideas that you can go forward and implement, but lots of challenges too, some successes, and how we go along there. So I want to talk about the parking industry and bit of a background on the parking industry. I'll start off by giving a bit of background. The background as far as technology and the business sense of what it is in the parking industry. And that's the very first thing when you work in a startup. You really can't have your blinders on and say, I'm an engineer, I'm going to do only engineering work. I'm a marketing person and I do only that. What happens is when companies are really small, you end up doing a lot of everything. And so if you are an engineer, you're going to also be marketing and doing some sales for your company because that's just the nature of it. It's a very small company and, everybody does everything. So, you can't talk about business separately from technology and technology separate from business in a startup company. So I'll describe both and what the background was like in those days. I'm talking about 2012. Then I'll introduce Way.com, which is the company that where I got to do a lot of experimentation. I'm an advisor for Way.com now. I am no longer operationally involved in a day-to-day operations with Way.com. I do advise lots of startups right now. I'm in a consulting role where I do I work with a lot of startup companies. I want to talk about some of the early experiments we did back in 2012 with IoT and how we wanted to implement it in the parking space. That's kind of the crux of this thing, and what learnings we had and where we are today. Because this is a clearly evolving industry and field, and as technology grows, more adaptations of it are happening. So we'll talk about that. So let's start with introducing what parking was back in 2012. I hope you guys can see some of these things very well. And this primarily is with respect to how parking is done in the US and in a lot of European countries, South America, and in parts of the UAE and some parts of Asia. It's not as this really our market, the market that we were targeting were the US and Europe. So let's talk about it. So what was the state of technology? And when I talk about parking, what I'm talking about is you are taking your car, you're driving in your car, you're going to the mall, you're going shopping, you're going to eat out in the middle of in downtown, and there are a lot of parking garages that offer parking. Sometimes these garages, sometimes they are actually an enclosed building, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just like an open lot. They can be either. In the US, most of them are enclosed. However, when you talk about the state of technology, a lot of it is very antiquated technology, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. It's mostly hardware with some very little software, but mostly hardcore hardware with mechanical gates that open and close. And in other cases, it's like what technology? Because like you can see in this picture, it's often a person. You pay the person the money, and there is the person, and they don't even take a credit card; they'll take cash. So it was very antiquated. Secondly, it was a handful of vendors, and in the U.S., about 12 to 13, actually families that had had this parking idea for many years, that had handed it down, and they were handling the market. They controlled the parking market. They controlled the garages, and they worked with certain specific vendors who built these machines. These machines are these are machines that have these gates in there. These gate machines, plus some little add-ons like little software that they threw in there, they cost anywhere from $250,000 to $1 million to install. And once you install them, not only was it a one-time revenue for these vendors that were building these, but it also recurring because you got to take a ticket. It's a paper machine that expense these tickets. And then when you pay, you use the machine again. So this is how it was. And on the very top there, you can see I pulled it off of one of these vendors. They sell it as barriers and columns and automated payment machines. So that's what they were selling. And they're still selling that. They're still selling that. And these machines are humongous. And if you are a garage owner, you had to buy this and then pay these vendors on a regular basis. That's the background of what it was like in 2012. And now I wanted to introduce Way.com. So initially, Way.com started off saying, we want to help people reserve their parking if they're going to the airport, or if you're going to a downtown, like I mentioned, or to a theater or to a mall. We want you to be able to book parking in advance. So we are Way.com. We're a company of about 5 people, literally. And what we built this e-commerce site. And on one hand, we were working with garages to help put them on our site so people could select them. And on the other hand, we were selling to customers saying, hey, before you go to town, book your parking before you went. And our business model was, we took a percentage off of the transaction that was between the customer and the parking lot. So that's how we made money. But as we were, the company was growing. The company is growing fast, and it was being adopted pretty well. We decided to introduce more technology into the space because we were a technology company. Our CEO founder is a technologist, and some of our top leaders, including myself, we were all technologists. So we wanted to introduce some technology, saying, how can we introduce some of this cool technology that's happening into this whole parking industry? Once again, this is exactly what I said. It was an e-commerce startup providing online parking reservations. It was a technology-focused company, rapidly growing. So we wanted to introduce. We thought it would be perfect time to introduce IoT. So the next two slides are actually exact slides that we had put together back in 2013, I think, and I've just copied it from a while ago, so it's proprietary to way.com. So this is how we advertise it. So what's the parking problem? You know, you have to get a ticket. When you go in there, you have to get a ticket, right? And many times you lose your ticket because you have to hold on to it. How many times have you gone in there with maybe children, or maybe you're rushing off to some place, you might lose a ticket, right? And then when you come back, well, you lost your ticket. So what do? You got to scratch your head and say, I lost my little piece of paper. I don't know where I put it. And of course, you need a credit card, or you need the exact change. If you put a $20 bill and your charges all your money back. Many times you see these machines, these payment machines with a little thing there saying, sorry, the machine is not operational. You have to go see a person. So these were several problems in parking in this space. So this is what we were marketing as what we wanted our solution to be. This was our vision of what our solution would be. That on our way app, the customer, the user who wants to park, would find on a map all the way garages, which were automated. They could go to the garage, and all they would do is this would pop up and say open gate, and they would just swipe in and it would open the gate, and it would start clocking in and park your car. You go do your stuff, whatever you need to do, go to the mall, go to the theater, and you come back, you swipe out, it'll open the gate and it'll check you out, and it'll automatically get charged to your credit card. So that was our vision, and that was what we wanted to sell. Parking garages, as you can see there, they were very happy with this. They were losing a lot of money. There was a lot of change that was getting lost because in cash transactions, they couldn't track where the money was going, machine failures, and they did not want to pay these big gate machine vendors the money that they were paying. So they were quite happy. They were quite happy. Customers were very, very happy because the problem that I described here is all a customer problem. They didn't want to deal with this. Customers were very happy. So we had happy garage operators, and we had happy customers. So the solution that we came up with is at that time, the Raspberry Pi was out. I don't know how many people know what a Raspberry Pi is. A Raspberry Pi is a single board computer. It's got a little processor, it's got some memory, it's got Bluetooth capability, and it's got some networking capability, and it's got a variant of Linux running on it. So we thought, why not use that as our basic IoT thing and put it into gate boxes? If we put it in there, maybe we could talk to it, and that was our original vision to implement what we were trying to do and connect it to our app. So here's some pictures of this is actually the real pictures of the little IoT device that we built. So we got the the basic Raspberry Pi, which, like I said, is a single board computer. We bought some third-party relay boards to interface with the gate, to open and close the gate. We also added our own board with some lights in there, which would, several little lights, which would be able to tell us, this is really for debugging purposes, whether a gate was opened, whether a gate was closed. Obviously, it was also sending us the signals. It also has this particular most of these Raspberry Pis also had some general purpose IO, GPIO pins, which would be connected to the gate itself. What you see in the middle here is what the gate itself offers us. What is the interface that it offers us? How we can connect to this particular gate. Now, keep in mind, the vendors who are selling these big, humongous $250,000 to $1 million gate to the operators, to the garage operators, they have no interest in what I'm selling to the garage owners, right? Because they're worried that it could replace their big, humongous $1 million, antiquated piece of metal, and it could lose their revenue, and it could, like I said, they had been around for a very long time, and it had been passed down through generations. And so this was a little bit of a threat to them, saying, we don't want this change. So when we were working with this, and the garage operators were very happy to open up the garage. We just use our screwdrivers, and we ourselves, like I said, when you're in a small company, and I could have been an HP, didn't matter. I got down there, got on my knees, used a screwdriver, and opened this thing up. And we figured out how this interfaces with our Raspberry Pi and actually attached it in there to see how it works and tried some basic tests with our laptops. However, what would have been a very good thing is if these vendors had actually given us their API and we had talked directly to their API. Well, but that didn't happen. So one of our first implementations was to just implement basic Bluetooth communication between the smartphone and device. So we would ParkTap, that was the name. We had several names for it, by the way, and that's one of the advantages of working at a startup. You could name it whatever you want, and nobody knows about it because it's a small company. So here are some pictures of how we wanted it to operate, and these are original pictures that we put together from 2013. The ParkTap device would be inside these gate machines, and they would talk to the gate circuit to open and close the gate, and the way application would be running on the phone itself. And as the way user, the customer, came close to the gate, through the Bluetooth communication between the device and the way application, it would say, okay, here's a user. It's constantly, there's a beacon inside this device that's regularly broadcasting a signal, and it would identify that and said, okay, can you go ahead and swipe to open? And this was how it was meant to work. That didn't work because signal wasn't, the Bluetooth signal available in 2013 probably worked for a phone and maybe a headphone or a wristwatch and a phone, but it certainly didn't work from when you're sitting inside a car with all the metal barriers. So we went on to the next model where we said, okay, instead of the direct communication, let's work with the application talking to the server, getting the nod from the server, and the server talking to the ParkTap device. So we'll see whether that works out. So it is Bluetooth and an internet-based communication between smartphone and device. Again, the beacon is there. It recognizes when the phone comes, but there's minimal communication between the Raspberry Pi and the Way application. Well, that didn't work either because nobody had Wi-Fi inside. Internet was not something that was available inside enclosed garage. Cellular did not work because, how many cell phones work inside a garage? A lot of the garage owners were so excited in trying to implement this. They did not want us to give up. They were willing to fund us. They wanted us to work with them. I can't tell you how many days I spent sitting in a garage, sitting next to one of these things and trying to make this work while trying to desperately do some coding on the laptop itself. Well, none of them worked. So the project lasted for about a year. Several parking garages participated in our trials with us. But what we concluded is that the technology was not mature for our use case. Yes, Bluetooth existed. Bluetooth could work in other cases, but with all these heavy metal barriers, whether it was the gate or us sitting inside a car, it didn't work. It wasn't powerful. It was too weak. It didn't work. And we were not going to take a chance that it may not work, because if it didn't work, cars could crash, gates could hit on the car, and the consequences were fairly severe. So that we couldn't take a chance on that. And the last part is, of course, the gate manufacturers itself were not cooperative. They're not willing to give us the API so that we could do it in an easier, more reliable fashion. They were not going to give us that. So we sat back, and today there are companies that are doing this. It's not prevalent. It's not all over the place, but there are companies that have done it and are successful. I don't know how reliable they are. I often want to go to those gates and stand there and try it because I think out of 10 times, if I try it, at least 5 times it failed in my case. So I don't know how reliable these solutions are. But we gave that up and we moved on to doing other things, other greater, better things. And today we are a very successful company and doing other things, but we did not do we did not go forward with this particular experiment. But I wanted to share this both as a startup story about early days in IoT and where the parking industry is. And with that, I will stop.
Thank you, Sharda. Thank you. And it's amazing company. And there's a comment from one audience as well, like he has used way.com since 2015. Like the concept of booking in advance and discounted parking. Great customer service whenever he faced a problem. So kudos to you and your colleagues.
Thank you.
And there
Thank
must
you.
be many, many success stories, I'm sure.
We have almost 3 million customers in the US who are way.com customers, and we're very happy and we're growing.
Yeah. No, it's good. Hats off to you to bringing such a great model, and it's a great concept, and I think it will work wonders. All the best to you, Sharda. Thank you. And thank you for the lovely presentation as well. We'll stay connected and we'll love to connect with you soon in the near
Absolutely,
future.
absolutely. And again, thanks once again for the giving me this opportunity to share my story.
No, it's absolutely our pleasure as well, because all those success stories becomes a true stories and becomes a role model for new companies or new startups to follow for this. Thank you.
Well, in this particular case, it wasn't a success story, but still, I wanted to share a story that was not a success story, and yet we persevere and go off and do other things.
And now you are growing, and it's growing.
Yes.
Thank you, Sharda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, we'll move on to our last presentation for the day. So we have a great speaker, Amit Kach, who is Chief Revenue Officer, V2 Solutions. And his topic is AI plus IoT, which is AIoT. It's powerful accelerator for digital transformation. So over to you, Amit.
Hey, Nitin, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And let me first share the slide, then we can go ahead.
Yes.
Let me know if it's visible.
Yeah.
To me.
So there's a screen share option.
Yes. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Can you put it in the slideshow mode?
Yeah. Perfect.
Awesome. Nitin, thank you so much. And first of all, good morning and good afternoon to the team and the viewers who are watching this live show. I think we had an incredible last 3.5, 4 hours of information that flowed through all the industry leaders. I think we talked about multiple concepts, technology platforms, components, and whatnot. And I think we had a wealth of knowledge that we derived from this session so far. And you may be thinking, what does V2 Solutions do? And I look at it in a different way altogether. I look at all the technology platforms, components that we talked about, blockchain, ML, AI, IoT, cloud, NLP, you name it. Every month, I think we are coining some new term in the industry. We think V2 Solutions brings these pieces of puzzles together for our enterprise clients to build viable, scalable business solutions. Not just that, we also, as a partner, play dual role. We are also co-engineering and engineering partners to many of the technology and technology infrastructure providers whom you heard in last 3.5 hours, where we are helping them build these pieces of puzzles. At the same time, on the front, we are helping the enterprise clients to see how those pieces of puzzles can be utilized to make a picture for them, which is a business solution which can drive value for them in the long run. But at the same time, it's not just we're going to put this piece of puzzle together and kind of put any solution in front of our clients. We want to be consultative in nature. We go out there, understand the business problem, make sure there is an ROI for a solution that we're putting together for them. It's a viable and a scalable solution for our clients. Having said that, let me do a quick deep dive into some of the use cases that we have seen in the industry where we're utilizing IoT and AI in combination to produce the business solutions. For this client, it's basically a medical device manufacturer, US based. They have their proprietary device, which basically helps to capture various health vitals of a client. This device actually is an IoT device. And what we did was put a solution or overarching solution on top of it, which could help the client not just capture these vitals, but also kind of make them accessible in the cloud to the doctors, to the practitioners, and also help using AI, how we marry these vitals with the existing EMR data on the client and predict, do preventive measures on their health. Okay, the CVD basically is cardiovascular disease detection. So we were able to kind of do real-time analysis on the data being captured on these devices for the clients, also marry that with the historic data of the client, and kind of come back to the doctor with some actionable AI, or what our team calls that measurable AI, where we can not just provide insight, but also provide why the AI model is suggesting certain aspects of it to the doctor. So very unique solution, very mission critical, because obviously it's talking about people's health, people's life. So did that for a client in the medical industry sector. Now, going away from the healthcare industry, this solution we derived for a company which is providing an online AI-based platform for school districts to kind of monitor the behavior of the drivers for the safety of the kids who are being driven across between homes and schools. This solution was put together to kind of do basically the predictive analysis of the driver behavior in terms of speeding, heart braking, various type of maintenance alerts that could be generated to figure out the health of the vehicle, also the driving behavior of the driver who was carrying kids to school or from school back to home. Very critical solution. It also had a dashboard which the school district operators can monitor and can figure out in real time if there's anything going wrong with the vehicles on the field. There were tens and thousands of vehicles on the field which were actually carrying these kids across between school and home and from home to school. So this was kind of a solution we built for them, where we were using not just IoT, but also seeing how the data between IoT devices, sensors flows back to the cloud. And we could do kind of real-time analytics on the data to figure out the various aspects of the driver's behavior. This is a unique use case, very prevalent today, and we all are consumers of this use case in some shape or form. For this organization, we have built a very massive AI-based platform, which is kind of ingesting a massive flow of content in every shape and form: audio, images, text, videos, from various global sources. And we have built a modular, intelligent kind of AI/ML solution on the cloud, which can help the providers and the content providers, other content consumers, to figure out various aspects of the business, whether it's a title management, whether it's age ratings, whether the content segregation in terms of content, nudity content, porn content. All those things can be managed online using the AI models, which are actually doing it automated basis across the board. This platform today creates more than 4+ million records across 100 OTT and MVPD platforms worldwide. And the content is not only English. You're talking about 200+ countries. You're talking about content which is original, content which has complexity in terms of language, complexity in terms of the length, the formats, and everything else. So this is kind of AI which we built on scale for driving useful insights for the media houses. A unique case study, I like this very much because very little motivation from the high tech and manufacturing sector. This is a platform that we built for a company which is providing the farmers, the people in the agriculture industry, to do better yield management. We are kind of utilizing sensors which are placed on the soil to do humidity measurement, how much water is required, automated irrigation concepts, and not only that, but also provide farmers kind of better data that can help them make right decisions and right choices at a particular point in time to do yield management of their crops. Very functional use case. It also helps them to kind of figure out when and how much of the chemicals, fertilizer they need to use to produce a better yield on their fields. If you look at all these use cases, what I've seen so far and what you must have seen so far, it's not about how these IoT, AI, or ML technologies were used behind the scene to provide useful insights for the business users. The underlying theme across all these use cases was the critical part of it and critical piece of the puzzle, that's data. So as V2 as a company, we are not only putting these solutions in place from the engineering and technology standpoint, but we also help organizations to kind of make sure the data that they're aggregating or acquiring or through these sensors is processed in the right way so that whatever data goes back to the AI and ML engines is a qualified right data, clean data. Because we all know that the quality of data will drive the predictability and the AI and ML engines analysis capability. So we also do a lot of work on the data analysis side of it, which is data hygiene, enhancement, annotations, data append, segregation, categorization, data normalization. All those things are also taken care to make sure the data that is fed to the AI ML engines and the pipe around there is a clean data so that we clean insights for our customers. Not only that we provide data capture acquisition through sensors and through these IoT devices, we also have built our own AI-based solution, which helps clients or customers to drive data out of documents, unstructured data. I think this is an opportune moment to kind of launch it because we were actually planning to launch it next week, just a preview for all the viewers. We have a platform called Neutron Plus. It's an AI-powered holistic document processing solution. One of the industry's first. We guarantee 99.9% accuracy of any format of data, any format, any document, whether it's PDF, whether it's bill of lading, invoices, handwritten, electronic document. We can identify, segregate all kinds of documents, derive the insights, the data that you want to derive out of it, not just get the data out, but also integrate with your choice of backend system records. A fantastic solution that we're bringing to the market. We're launching them next week. And obviously, you'll see the snippets of it coming on the social media soon. Having said that, I believe that when I said in the beginning, V2 Solutions as an organization, we believe we are the last piece of the puzzle, which completes the frame. I would like to kind of thank all the viewers and the iCourse pod team for having me on the session. Wish all of you a very happy holidays. And in case you want to reach out to me, my coordinates are below on the slide, which is amit.kachru@v2solutions.com. Love to hear back from you, and in any shape and form we can help you build solutions and technology, utilize these technology solutions, build business solutions for yourself. We'll be more than happy to assist. Any questions?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Amit. Thank you for the lovely presentation and an interesting topic, means AI plus IoT, which is obviously a powerful accelerator for digital transformation, and you showed the right way to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Nitin.
And there's a comment from Vamshi, farmer and agriculture are future. Thank you for the information. Thank you. So I'll just wrap up in case we don't have any questions. I'll just wrap up the thing. Just to let all of you know, this is the last event which we had for this year. We would like to thank our technology partner Digit7 and all our community partners, speakers, and attendees who came together for enriching knowledge through this forum. Today, we've witnessed the highest attendance for this year because of this maybe interesting topic, AI, IoT, and blockchain. And we had great set of speakers as well, which we witnessed today. And hope we'll carry this in the coming months to follow as well. Just for your information to all the crowd who are witnessing this, today's event was broadcasted in the YouTube and Facebook page of our company. So you all can go there and see the recording anytime. Please log on to our website and like the social media channels. We'll be sharing lots of knowledge sharing topics, details, announcement of next events, and much more, which will help you register and attend the same. There are a lot more in store for subsequent months, that is the next year, with focus on healthcare, banking, financial, retail, e-commerce, supply chain, aviation industry, and much more. Request all of you to keep connected with us and enjoy the learning. Also, just to wrap up, as holiday season is coming and we have threat from new COVID variation, our best wishes are with all of you. Stay safe, enjoy the holidays, and we'll be happy to connect in the new year. So, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year 2022 in advance to everyone. Bye. Take care.